Tonight, Wonder Woman faces down Dr. Poison to deliver the moral that terrorism is bad. Harley Quinn must have finally taken her meds because this issue is the most straightforward it's been in like 2 years. And Batman finally brings out the big guns, both figuratively and literally. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 229 of the Not So New 52. I am your host, and for like the 5th week in a row, it's just kind of a normal week. Not a whole lot of big things happening. We do have a brand new number one. We do have continuing on with the events of Superman as a line, but beyond that, pretty normal, all things considered. So I guess I'll just go ahead and tell you what's coming out this week, and then if anything else pops into my mind before we start the show proper, I'll tell you. So this week in alphabetical order, we have Batgirl, Batman, Dr. Fate, Harley Quinn, Martian Manhunter, Robin, Son of Batman, Secret Six, Sinestro, Superman, Wonder Woman, Titans Hunt, Wonder Woman, our weekly series of Batman and Robin Eternal, and our brand new number one that we are starting is a miniseries of Poison Ivy, Cycle of Life and Death. I would love to say it has, great art, which it does. It does have great art. Clayman is the artist, but the show doesn't show off the art. I just tell you the writing. So take my word for it, or go check out the series yourself. I'm sure the trade is still being published, or at least distributed. Beyond that, the only other thing I want to bring up, and this is, I don't want to spoil it. I really don't want to spoil it, but you need to check out Secret Six. I am talking about Secret Six this week, and it is so insane what happens in that book. I feel like you'll even get it even if you haven't been following the rest of the series. So check that out. And also Superman Wonder Woman is continuing on with the Savage Dawn stuff. I'll say that one's a lot less needed to check out, but you should be checking out every comic anyway, because I provide you these beautiful dishes. You should at least sample them before you say you won't like it. Anyway, all that said and done. Comics. I think I want to start with Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy, The Cycle of Life and Death, number one, written by Amy Chu, art by Clay Mann. So this is a new miniseries, 6 issues long, and I'll be honest, I don't really know much about it at all, except that they build it as Poison Ivy's first solo outing. So we open up in Africa, where we see a Humvee, a Jeep, whatever you want to call it, is going through the plains. It's completely barren, and they say, oh yeah, it's great for coming to the savannah, Doc, there's so many great plants around here. And then all of a sudden the other voice, it's Poison Ivy. It's Pam Isley. She says, hey, pull over. I see what I'm looking for. And they come across this giant ass plant that is apparently at least 2,000 years old. They call it the living fossil. And the guy's like, oh, what are you doing? Because she just walks over to it and starts whispering to it. She's like, oh, I'm just having a conversation. Don't worry about it. And he's like, okay. So they start digging up the plant when all of a sudden they hear cars off in the distance, and they see another Humvee, this one bigger and more tanked out, approaching, and we see a bunch of people coming out with machine guns. And they're all like, hey, you're trespassing. And he's like, what? No, we've got permission from the university. We're totally fine. And then they butt the travel guide or whatever in the face with one of the guns, saying, you don't have permission from us. You messed up now. And then Poison Ivy just says, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And she uses the plant to wrap them all up and says nobody interrupts Poison Ivy. So 2 days pass, we get back to Gotham Botanical Gardens, where Ivy is working. She's like just Pamela Isley, and seemingly people know that she's Poison Ivy to some extent. We see that there is her immediate boss, supervisor, named Louisa, who is kind to her and everything else. And then there's like the guy in charge, whose name is Grimley. He's in a wheelchair and he's pissed off, not because it's Poison Ivy, but because he thinks that women don't belong in the botanical sciences for some reason. So at that point, all of a sudden, a bunch of children start piling in. And Luisa's like, "Oh yeah, we got a tour thing going on or whatever from the Gotham Academy." And we see I think for the first time in any book that was not their own, the Gotham Academy kids are all here, and it's so weird to see them in a different art style, but they're like, oh, hello, my name is Louisa Cruz, this is Dr. Pamela Isley, we're doing all this stuff here, and they point to the living fossil that they were replanting in here, and they're like, does anyone want to guess how old this is? And they're like, I don't know, 500? And they're like, no, 2,000 years old, possibly older. Plants can live incredibly long periods of time. It's insane. And so they continue down the tour, down into the lab, and that's where Ivy takes over and is like, okay, my thing is that I look at the things that plants can do. They all have desirable traits, and imagine if we could take them and put those into animals. And everyone's like, aren't plants and animals different things? Like, you shouldn't be able to do that. She's like, you'd think so, but all the DNA is the same down on that fundamental level. So I managed to take the traits that extend life for all these animals and put them into these rats that should have died after 6 months, but now they're living up to a year. So we're doing great. We're doing everything we can here. So at that point, we see another voice comes in from off panel saying, like, just being stopped by a security guard, but she says, hey, now I got a PhD. Don't worry, you can call me doctor. And Ivy looks over and sees that it's Harley dressed up in her Harleen Quinzel sort of get up. And so she's looking around. She walks over to Ivy just being like, hey, how's it going? Nice to see you. You haven't been answering my calls recently. And she's like, I've been kind of busy. Why are you showing up at my work? And so she starts trying to make kind with Dr. Louisa, and Ivy's just like, okay, you know what? How about this? Let's get out of here. Let's bolt out of here. And some other guy tries to hit on Harley, and they end up bouncing out because of that. So they go down to a bar, Bobby's Biker Bar, and Harley's now in her normal get-up. And Ivy's just basically chewing her out, saying, like, what is wrong with you? Like, I have someone who's willing to give me a chance here at doing my job, like the thing I want to do in my research, and you come in, you're bringing in all, like, the supervillain stuff? Like, she's willing to take a chance on me here. And he's just like, what? That's boring. All that stuff is boring. You've got patents for biotech. What do you need the money for? She's like, I like being surrounded by my intellectual peers. That's what. And Harley takes that to mean that Ivy thinks that she's stupid. And in trying to blow off some steam, they look across the bar and see a couple of bikers are hitting on one of the waitresses. She's clearly not into it. So Harley comes over with her mallet, and Ivy takes the lime out of her drink and starts growing plants out of it to help her along. So it looks like a whole big fight thing breaking out, and then Ivy's like, all right, hold on. This fight is just going to mess up the bar. I want to try something new. And she pulls out a little spray bottle from her pocket, spritzes it in the face of two of the bikers, counts up to 5, and then all of a sudden they start making out with each other. And Ivy's like, yep, new pheromone recipe. What do you think? And Harley's like, oh, you're just always so smart. You always want to show off your gadgets or whatever. And I'm just so stupid. And Ivy, getting frustrated at this point, says, you know what? Yeah, like, you do stupid things. Like, look at how you are with men. I'm not still obsessed over some sort of overly psychotic ex-boyfriend. And Harley's like, okay, all right, low blow. And also, he's psychopathic, not psychotic. But she hops on her motorcycle, or a motorcycle that's there, and says, you know what? Enjoy being by yourself. And so she drives off. Ivy makes her way back home, and she looks around at all the people as she passes on the street, and she's like, humans are so complicated. They cause so much pain, and they're so frail and all that. I don't even understand how they can communicate with each other. So she makes herself back into the apartment. She immediately strips down because this book is full of eye candy, and she's like, well, you know what? Who needs partners? Who needs friends? I could do fine without them. All I need is me and my plants. I never fit in with the human world anyway. And so she walks over to 3 plants that I guess she took from the lab that were very promising, have some big genetic thing going on here, and she kisses them goodnight and says, like, all right, you guys sleep tight. And she ends up falling asleep as she looks over her notes. And when she wakes up the next morning, no notifications, but she sees that the plants have exploded in growth, and it was nothing to do with her. She didn't use her powers. This is all natural. So she's like, oh my God, I got to call Dr. Louisa to see how there's one more of these plants down at the lab. How did that one do? So she tries getting her on the phone, no answer. As she gets down there, she sees Louisa's car is still there. So she's like, oh, hey, Louisa, did you stay the whole night? And as she enters the lab, Louisa is dead. She's got green, veiny skin and seemingly murdered. Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do like it. I think it's a solid start. Obviously, this is just setting up like a little bit of a mystery. Maybe that's not the core of the book. Maybe it's not this idea of finding Luis's killer is the big threat here, but this idea that we can go through Poison Ivy and just kind of drill into her head a little bit. Back at the beginning of the New 52, there was a Penguin series that did exactly that. We get into like the inner motivations and we get into all that stuff. And I think, Poison Ivy is one of those, I hesitate to say villain now, but back at this point, villains who was always a bit more sympathetic because obviously the cultures have changed, the ideas have changed, and now everything that she stands for is kind of like, well, yeah, no, duh. So interesting to see the way we'll go through that. Overall, art's great. I love the way that Clay Mann does his stuff here. So I'm going to say this is I'll give it an 8. I think it's worthwhile to have the 8 just to start out here, and we'll see how it evolves further on. Harley did throw me for a loop for a second there. I wasn't sure if I would like it, but that's just my hesitance with Harley at this point in the New 52. Still worth an 8, though. Superman Wonder Woman number 25, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Doug Mahnke. So this is the next part of Savage Dawn. Kinda, mostly. It might just be the next full part. I was a little confused because last issue in Action Comics, it ended with Superman and Wonder Woman falling out of orbit down to Earth, and they were just laying like still in a crater. This issue kind of picks up there, but more specifically, the Action Comics issue said Savage Dawn be continued in issue 26 of Superman and Wonder Woman. So probably just a mistype, editorial or whatever. But regardless, this one picks up with all of the pantheon of gods. Wonder Woman's pantheon here, the Greek gods, and she's coming to them with Superman essentially dead in her arms saying, help me out, man. I need some healing stuff here. And everyone sits there like, why would we do that? Like, what's so special? Like, who cares? And then Hades steps in, and we haven't seen Hades in like issues and issues here because he's thought dead. He steps up and he's like, hey, wait a minute. I've got an idea. Right now, Superman is just like perfectly threading between life and death, which gives me the unique opportunity to dick with him. So how about we all take a vote after each of the gods here, which is, to be clear, Strife, Hephaestus, Hermes, Eros, and Artemis, not necessarily in that order. We're all going to do a thing to prove his valor and steadfastness and whatever else to show that he's worthy of our healing ray. And then we'll take a vote afterwards to say whether we heal him. Got it? And everyone's like, all right, sounds good. So first one to step up is Artemis, and we see Superman just wakes up. He's in his costume, his outfit, and Artemis is there like, here, take this spear. Come chasing after me. We're on the hunt for the world's greatest, most dangerous game there is. And he's like, all right. So they start running through jungles, which eventually turn into cornfields. Artemis is like, oh, it's gone this way. We got to go that way. And he's like, no, it went this way. And he goes down a different path and eventually lunges and tackles down Clark Kent, like in the glasses and suit and all that. And they both say, wait a minute, I thought you were dead. And that's where Artemis steps up and goes, hey, you found it before me. You're a natural hunter. However, you hesitated on the kill. And so she throws a spear, which ends up impaling both Superman and Clark, and they fall into a waterfall. Then he wakes up, and turns out that Strife has merged the two together, like vertical split. One half is Superman, the other is Clark. And she's like, guess what we'll be doing? And she leads him into Smallville and tells all the Smallville people, tell Superman what you really think about him. And they just start chewing him out, saying how he's made everything substantially worse for him. They're throwing rocks and stuff at him, and he just sheds a single tear. And then Strife is like, awesome, let's go to Metropolis. And they all say the same stuff of how he put their city as like a target on a map, and they don't need him, and yada yada. And Strife is like, wow, you're doing great. Like, I would have snapped some necks by now. But surely no version of Superman snaps necks, right? So eventually she leads him up into the Daily Planet, and all the people inside the Daily Planet are like, you lied to us, you're a cheater, a liar, you suck. And Strife is like, oh, well, if I were you, I'd snap their necks. No? Okay, moving on. So then we go to Hephaestus, and he enters Hephaestus' lair, still split in half. And he's like, hey, Superman, you're underneath Mount Etna. That's where my thing is. It's a little bit bubbly recently. Something is probably going to happen soon, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to just bail. This Earth sucks for you right now. They don't like you. I've made a rocket ship, and once Mount Etna explodes, it will shoot the rocket ship up to whatever planet you would like to go to, somewhere where they can appreciate you. And Clark's like, I'm not going to do that. And he's like, well, if you're not going to do that, then you're going to burn in the fires of Mount Etna. And he's like, all right, that's what I got to do. So after the fire starts, we then cut over to Eros, god of love, and Eros has not been in a lot of the books, like, at all. So even if you're reading Wonder Woman, it's a little confusing. He explains that he's essentially Cupid. He's using guns and shoots people for love or whatever else. And then he's walking through a garden that has all these statues in honor of Superman and Wonder Woman's love. And Eros is just like, oh, no, this is great. This is fantastic. Don't you like this? And he's like, I think it's creepy. And Eros is like, fair enough. But I know what your true desires are and how you've been putting up a wall despite what you really want. And so he fires some shots at Superman. Superman just tanks him. And inside the bullets, or rather the bullets themselves, are not bullets, but the engagement ring that we covered, I think, in the annual last month, where Superman was going to propose to Wonder Woman, but it just never worked out. And so he put it away. And he's like, wait, that's the ring. Like, I put it away. And Eros is like, okay, cool. So what are you going to do with that? And he's like, I'm not going to tell you. That's creepy. And Eros is like, fair enough. So we go through and we're done with everybody. Hermes didn't do anything. I don't know if that's for lack of time or like he just didn't care to do it. But everyone steps out and they're like, all right, we did it. He passed our test. He's good, whatever like that. And one of them's like, so you'll heal him? And they're like, yep. So they heal him up. There's a big flash of light. And then Hermes says, he is completely healed and also completely mortal. I don't know what that means. I'm assuming, because Superman's not immortal, right? Like, he's not, he never had eternal life or anything like that, but maybe they mean like they fully depowered him now. Like, he is just a dude, and the rest of Savage Dawn is going to be like, okay, how do you do this with no super strength, no durability, nothing like that? Maybe, but he wasn't immortal to begin with, so I don't know what we were talking about here. I mean, it's a fine issue, like in its own right. Just looking at it as a solid issue of its own, I think that it works well. Even in the Superman Wonder Woman book, I think it's fine. I think it feels weird as the next part of Savage Dawn. Like, it didn't feel like with Wonder Woman lying dead there in the crater, we got a good link. We got a good thing of her saying like, oh, this is the only chance I have. I have to get him healed. So I brought him before these random assortment of gods here. Why not Hera? Hera likes you. Why not do something like that? I don't know. It just feels like there were other options that probably could have been explored like in another issue, but that issue just doesn't exist. So I like the art. I like the exploration here of the Superman like mythos and how he reacts and how he still shows his steadfastness and all that, but it just felt weird for the event. So I guess I'm gonna say, I'll say a 7.5. I think that's where it probably evens out to, but it, again, not a bad issue. I just know that Superman Wonder Woman, this is the last trade that I'm reading from. Every single issue left in this trade essentially is like, here's what happened in another book, because it's all events from here on out. It goes from Savage Dawn into the next event. There's no escape. So hopefully this doesn't ruin the story too much for the book, but the issues itself should be fine. Batman number 48, written by Scott Snyder, art by Greg Capullo. So last issue, Bloom escaped custody of Gordon and Batman Incorporated or Co. or whatever you want to call it. And then we had Bruce Wayne sitting on a bench, seemingly approached by an amnesiac Joker. Both those things combine in here, but we pick up with some machine getting turned on, and it seems to be overpowered. I have no idea what this is. If this is a reference to something earlier, I've completely forgot. But all the scientists are like, oh, we got to get it offline now, quickly. And then we got over to the Bruce Wayne Joker thing. So we see that he's sitting on this bench, and Bruce is like, I'm sorry, do I know you? He's like, oh, no, I'm just here to fight you to the death. And Bruce is like, what? And he's like, nah, for the bench, get it? Because like we both share this bench all the time. It's like peaceful around here. Don't worry about it. It's just a joke. So he starts feeding some of the fish out in the pond, and he mentions how this pond was always disgusting. It had like all these bugs and stuff like that around. It was probably toxic. And he's just like, yeah, it's crazy. And Bruce is like, okay, I'm going to go now. And Joker is like, and again, no confirmation that this absolutely definitively is Joker, but it's Joker. So he's like, oh, well, hold on. Before you leave, I just want to show you something. It'll only take a minute. And then we cut over to Gordon, who's in the crash of the bus, and he starts crawling his way out. He's like, is everyone okay? Is everyone fine? And Bloom's there, along with a bunch of other followers of Bloom, and he's just like, I don't think so. So at this point, Bloom, because he can stretch, he can make himself bigger and all that, he starts growing, and he just picks Gordon up, and he's like, let's have a little talk, shall we? So back over to Bruce, we see Joker's pulled a gun, and Bruce is like, whoa, man, what is all of this about? And he's like, oh, sorry, I don't need to, I wasn't threatening you or anything like that. Look, I was also hurt in the Joker's attack. I was one of the last one rescued, and it hurt me. I felt lost. I didn't know what to do. I mean, and this is where it gets very... the writer talking to the audience. He's like, look, we set all this stuff up. I'm sure I had a purpose. I had all this other stuff, but then it's gone. It was wiped away. What's the point in starting over again, And Bruce is just like, but like the gun, can we please get rid of that? And he's like, oh yeah, well, the gun, I bought this to kill myself here. Cause like, it's peaceful and all that. And I put it in my mouth, but it was so peaceful here that I thought, this is the type of place that shouldn't be ruined by such an act or whatever. And so he just started coming here every day to find some peace. And he's like, look, the whole reason I tell you that is because I see you here every day. And you usually look like you're completely off your rocker, completely haunted. But now, lately, you seem better. And Bruce just like takes a minute. And then Joker's like, so don't do it. Don't go back to being the way you were before. And Bruce is like, I'm sorry, hold on now. What? So we go back over to Bloom. He's just marching through town. He's holding Jim up. And everyone around town is like, is that Jim Gordon in a bat suit? What's this all about? And then we go back over to the Bruce, and he immediately, Joker's just like, I'm saying, don't go back. That's what I came here for. Don't be the you that you were before. And Bruce just grabs him by the collar, and he's just like, how do you know who I was? I don't even know who I was. What's this all about? He's like, oh, well, you're Bruce Wayne. That's what I was about. It's like, yeah, well, you don't think I don't want to go back? I got someone I love. I got a whole thing. Why shouldn't I want to? Isn't this enough? And Joker's like, okay, I think we might be talking about different things here. I'm talking about the lake. And Bruce is like, what? And he's like, yeah, look, when you were in Wayne Enterprises and all that, when you were big boss Bruce Wayne, you only took care of the big picture things, like renovating all of Gotham. You didn't care about a tiny little pond like this. Now I see, the way you go through, you care about the smaller things. I just don't want this lake to suck again. That's all I'm saying. And Bruce is just like, oh, I'm not in charge of Wayne Enterprises anymore, so like I really can't do anything about that. And Joker's like, okay, I guess. And he's like, no, I really can't. But like, and then this is where Scott Snyder looks directly at the camera and he just says, but if it does go back to the way before, what was the point? Like, if we all just reset back to the status quo of it was before, what was the point of the last 7 issues? I mean, months. And Joker's like, well, maybe we just make the most of what we have. We were here, we made our imprint, and we moved on. Maybe that's it. And then he says, well, but then again, and he pulls out the gun and puts it under his head and says, or we can quit while we're ahead. And there's a loud boom noise, but it's a bait and switch. Turns out it's an explosion from Bloom over in the town. And Bruce is like, oh my God, Julia's in town. I got to go check on her. And as he runs away, he looks back to where Joker is. Joker's now gone. And he runs deeper into town. So then we get to Bloom stuff. And Bloom and all of his little Bloomites are going through the city, and he's like, hello, everybody. It's the day Gotham ends, a.k.a. Tuesday. How's it going? And it seems like he's trying to put on a bit here, but he gets more and more aggravated as it goes on. And he's like, look, I'm taking down Gotham because it's like a garden, you see. In a garden, like it's manufactured contentment. It's all these things, all these plants that aren't supposed to live together. They're all just side by side or whatever, but underneath the soil, they're all fighting for nutrients and resources. They're all killing each other just under the surface, and that's what Gotham is. We put forward the very best to make it look all pretty or whatever, but we're all just under the surface dying for each other here. And this, everybody, is Jim Gordon. He was sent to you to be Batman. This is the guy who, like, put away all these gang members or whatever, and we would have to feel safe with him protecting us. But all my blue mites back here, and they start taking off their masks, all of them were leaders and or members of gangs that Gordon put away, and then they got back out onto the streets again. That's the justice system for you. So, yeah, at that point, it cuts to Jerry Powers, and she's just like, okay, we got to get as many suits in the air as humanly possible, as many drivers as we have. Go now, send them out. And then we go back to Bloom, and he's just like, so, yeah, what I've done is I have gone around the city, and I've hidden thousands of my seeds. I have put them in all the little corners. They have a little bit of like an energy to them, so you should be able to feel them when you're getting near to it. And I want you all to go ahead, take them, join me. I respect you. I want you to be able to fight for yourselves. And one of the Bloomites is like, wait a minute, that wasn't the deal. And Bloom just kills him, like immediately, like whatever. And we see all over Gotham, people start like pulling up floorboards, looking under boxes and digging through trash. And Bloom's just like, all you gotta do is just small incision in your skin, put it in your bloodstream, and you'll get powers. Like, I have God knows how many seeds in me. It's crazy. It's a wild landscape out here. And he basically is just calling out people saying, like, working together, community and all that stuff as a whole is the dumbest thing ever. Everyone should be fighting for themselves. And like he pulls like an illegal immigration thing. He's like, you shouldn't be like trying to help your fellow man get into a better life, whatever. Screw them. Say damn them. Say damn them to hell for coming in and taking your stuff. But also to the immigrants, say damn them to the other people who ruined your country and then don't expect you to be able to get into theirs. Like, all of you suck. All of you should be fighting for yourselves. And if we just let things grow naturally, it will be a wonderful place. And Gordon's like, don't listen to him. And then he just like squeezes Gordon a little bit. And he's like, no, quiet time now. And he puts one of his little tendril things into Gordon's mouth. We then cut over to the rec center where a bunch of kids are being held. Jules is keeping an eye. Bruce walks in and he's just like, hey, it's nuts out there. We got to get going. We can go somewhere safe here. And all of a sudden, a voice off panel says, no, we're not leaving. And it cuts to a young girl named Liv, and she has blood down her arm, and it's obvious that she has implanted one of Mr. Bloom's seeds, and it's out of a nightmare. Her body starts contorting, going crazy. It's horrific. And she's like, I can protect us. I can fight him. I'll be Batman. And all of a sudden, her eyes start glowing, and looks like she explodes. So we get a bunch of stuff here. I'm not entirely sure I know all of it, but it looks like Gordon, his heart may have stopped because of the tendrils going into it. The machine from before may be overloading. They say it's too late. Everybody out. People are fighting over seeds in the streets. There's an army of robot Batmen marching their way down. We cut to Duke Thomas, who is told by a doctor that I'm so sorry. And he's like, oh, no, it can't be. And finally, we cut over to Alfred, who's watching all this unfold from Wayne Manor. He's watching it in the TV, and there's a loud banging noise on the door. And he says, no, I can't hear you. And as the banging noise continues, the door eventually gets kicked in, and we see it's Bruce saying, take me to my cave. Oh boy, we're gonna get Batman back. I really like this one. I think pacing wise, I think that we probably could have done a bit more before this for both Bloom and Bruce. As much as I like the talk, and Bruce's story is pretty much good for me, but I think I would have liked just like half an issue more of him realizing it, like him getting to the point of like, okay, he talked to the Joker. That can be one of the last conversations he has, but maybe it could even be the last one, but I wanted just a little bit more where like he gets it. He understands that this is what it is, especially after Liv dying, just seeing that fire and being like, I have to step back up. This is necessary for me. I would have liked that. Counterpoint to that, I think that Bloom, it's weird. He's had so much time, but I don't feel like all of this sort of manifesto coming out right now doesn't feel like it was particularly well forgive the pun, seated. I feel like it's been low level there, but this idea that it is all about the what's it called, individualistic, the idea that like everyone's just out for themselves and don't worry about it, that feels opposite of what I've seen from Bloom, because Bloom has been so much of like, you know, work with me, we'll build like all this stuff up and whatever else. So I don't hate what they did with him. I think that this issue individually is fine. It's looking at the run, it's looking at everything beforehand where it feels just a little bit blurry. So like this issue, love the ending. I think that was really, really solid there. I think I'm going to say, I'll say 8.5. It's almost at the 9 for me, but I think between the machine stuff and everything else I said there, it just got a bit too blurry, a bit too fast paced. I'm going to say 8.5. Still very, 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 very good. Titans Hunt number 4, written by Dan Abnett, art by Steven Segovia. So last issue ended with everyone freaking out because of the super loud scream from Mal having a seizure, and then we got introduced to Hawk and Dove, where Hawk heard it, but Dove didn't. So cut back, flashback to all the Titans out in the rain. They're yelling, they're saying like, oh, that scream, I heard that scream. And we see that this is now the Titans back in the day. This is old timey. This is when they were still a team and they knew each other. And Dick is trying to keep everyone together. He's like, oh, we're a team, we're doing whatever. And they're just like, oh man, I heard it was Harold. It was him. He screamed. It was both a song and a scream. And as they do the group pose or whatever like that, where we see Cave Boy, Wonder Girl, Robin, Speedy, Aqualad, Lilith, and Hawk, they say everything is worse than before. So Aqualad and Wonder Girl start snipping at each other, saying like, oh, why can't you stop this rain, yada yada. And Cave Boy is like, hey, I'll track them, just stop your arguing. To which Hawk says, Dove is out there, we have to find him, he'll get himself killed without backup. And apparently Speedy at this point was dating / in a very, very deep relationship with Wonder Girl. And he's like, look, we know this is magic. It's twisting you up, and it twists up the people with more power, more so. So you and Aqualad are especially messed up. So just calm down. She's like, oh, I'm so sorry. My mind's all messed up. So they follow the tracks when all of a sudden a bunch of like rocks start floating in the air. Lilith says, pulling this place apart to build something. So all of them say like, okay, as a team, Teen Titans, go. And then all of a sudden there's another scream song thing from Harold. Cut to modern day, the scream ends, and all the people who were in the clubhouse, which is Donna, Troy, Grayson, and Garth, are like, hey, I heard it again. It was there. It was a scream and music, and it triggered a memory. And Donna Troy describes the memory and says like, oh, it was all this. And they're like, yeah, no, that was flashback. We just had that. That's awesome. And Aqualad, I'm just going to call him that because I don't know his actual name here, is like, are you controlling my thoughts? And they're like, no, idiot. We all just heard it the same. Donna, are you controlling his thoughts? It's like, no, it's magic. And he's like, well, all right, we know each other's names. We've met. And he's like, yeah, you're Garth, you're Donna Troy. And she's like, and you're Dick Grayson. But also I'm picking up on the name Robin. Is your name Robin? And he's like, no, I've had like 7 names. Don't worry about it. And Garth is like, why so many names? He's like, don't worry. It's all work stuff. Don't worry about it. So Grayson points out, like, look, I think it's possible we once knew each other, but that's been wiped from our minds. I think we were friends. And Garth is like, I don't like that. But let's spin back around. What was the sound that we all just heard there? So then we cut to Karen running into the hospital. Apparently one of the people in why am I blanking on his name? I just heard Mal, one of his orchestra members, sent him to the hospital. And he's like, yeah, look, he had a seizure. It's a whole thing. I called an ambulance and I followed it out here, but like something happened. And she's like, what? What do you mean something happened? He's like, the hospital doesn't have any record of admission or the call. I don't know where the ambulance went. Like, no one does. And so Karen goes up, just be like, please, Malcolm, my husband, like, just tell me where he is. So we cut out deep into the woods, and we see the ambulance. The back doors are open. Malcolm's out just walking around. And He's like, hello, what's going on? Where is it? And then all of a sudden, it says he feels twisted up inside, and a voice is like, hey, Malcolm, took you a while to get here. And he's like, what? Who is that? Where are you? And he's like, oh, it's time, Malcolm. Time to make some noise. Time to strike up the band, let's party down tonight. And he's like, wait, hold on. Well, I'm not doing anything unless I know what's going on here. And he's like, look, it's time to call him. You're gonna be my herald, all right? And he's like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. And he's like, well, if you don't, I'm gonna mess with your wife and unborn baby. He's like, oh God, no, don't do that. He's like, yep, I'm gonna twist their life threads until they snap. So Malcolm throws a punch. It just goes through this ghostly apparition in front of him. He's like, you don't get to threaten my wife. What are you? And he finally gives a name to himself. He is their old friend, Mr. Twister, and he cues Malcolm to do the song. He screams out again, and it has a little musical tint to it. And then we cut over to Dawn Granger, who I'll get to in a second. She is talking to a guy who I guess is the leader, the gang that is working alongside with Harvest, because we have to tie back to Teen Titans and the stupid Lobdell run. And he's basically saying, like, look, you don't have any proof, and you're just a woman here, so my guys are going to take you, beat you up, and feed you to the fishes, because I'm that kind of gangster. And she's like, oh, fair enough. So then she activates her powers. She's Dove, and she manages to just, like, dodge and duck out of the way to cause them to like punch each other. She deflects bullets that they fire so that they hit themselves. She's taking the pacifist route, which is her thing. And then she's like, look, I could just take all these guys out on my own, but maybe I could use a little bit of help. And then Hawk comes in, busting through a wall, and just immediately starts absolutely murdering these guys to the point where Dove's like, okay, well, I wasn't fully intending on that. And he just keeps going. He slams one of them into this like memorial wall that they're at. And she has to like physically restrain him, just like, you're going to kill him, man. And he's like, I heard the sound again. It was a scream. It was shouting at me. Someone died, Dove. And she's like, yeah, this is a memorial wall. Clearly someone died. And she's like, no, not this one. Someone else died, and I need to remember who it was. So we cut back over to our main three, and Grayson's basically saying like, okay, we need to work as a team. And she's like, oh, look, do you realize how easy it would be for me to raise the seas and wash this whole place away? And they're like, Garth, don't do that. We need to come together here. There's something that's haunting all of us. And Donna says, yes, but it's hidden from us. You could say masked. And he's just like, wait a minute, masks, that's it. We need bait. Something is after us. We've been hiding from it, but we need to bait it out into the open. Oh my God, I just remembered. I brought my stuff from home. I stopped by the cave and I grabbed it. I don't even remember why I did that. It's like I knew that I needed it. Give me 5 minutes. I'll be right back. So Grayson runs off. We then go over to Speedy and Cave Boy, who are hiding from the police as they're just making their way down a major street here. And K-Boy's like, why do we have to steal a car? And it's like, because my truck is impounded and I need a car and I have to get to Lilith. And also, let's just take a pause here. Who are you? Why do I feel like I can open up to you? I don't open up to people. What is going on here? And he's like, well, I'm Cave Boy and you're Speedy, and we need to go figure out what we're supposed to fight together. And Arsenal's just like, Cave Boy's a stupid name. But, I don't believe that. They're all dumb names. And so K-Boy pulls out Arsenal's arm and points to the drawings he has on it, saying like, we're supposed to hunt together and find the nightmare. It's right here on your arm. The nightmare. It's marked on your skin. And Arsenal says he wants a drink. K-Boy just taps him on the head, says, no, you don't. You want to find the deeper meaning, the thing that's making you drink. So come with me. Fate is calling. And then we cut over to Garth and Donna, who are still sitting there waiting for Dick. And finally he shows back up. He's like, look, you may not remember this because it isn't the Robin outfit, but this is the bait. This is whatever's stalking us. It wants a mask. Here's what it is. And we see him fully dressed in his Nightwing outfit for the first time in like 3 years. Cool. Mr. Twister. Yeah. Look, I think I said last issue that this book either has been or I was hoping that it was going to continue being accessible to readers who don't know anything about like golden or silver age Teen Titan stuff, you know, like who are just coming into this like, what the hell's a Wonder Girl? Who the hell's Cave Boy? And giving us enough to work off of. Because that is me. I am in that group. The hell's a Mr. Twister? Like, he's got like, he's a ghost, but he also has like this staff that has some like feathers on it. I don't know. I don't understand. I'm sure we'll get a little bit of an explanation later on, but for this issue, I'm just a bit lost. And to say that we're just still reassembling the team, we're getting everything in place. I like that we've got the main three here. Cave Boy seems to be fully aware of everything because he's spiritual like that, same as Lilith. Yeah, I don't know. Could go anyway. I'm up for the mystery that it still has, and I'd say halfway through the book now, I'm hoping that we get to the whole team coming together within, I'm going to say, issue and a half. If it waits until the end of issue 6, it might be a bit too long, but I'm going to say issue and a half. I hope that's there. So 7. Yeah, I'm just going to say 7. It's almost at a 0.5 for me, but I'm just going to say 7. I want to really like this book, and I'm giving it so many benefits of the doubt, but like, it's starting to feel a bit just kind of circle jerky, where it's like, for all those people who really love the Teen Titans, this is for you. For everyone else, why are you buying this book? So yeah, we'll see what we get next issue, but I'm hopeful. Robin, Son of Batman, number 8, written by Ray Fawkes, art by Ramon Bachs. So this one, I think last issue we had was the Robin War tie-in, so this one is kind of just I don't want to say padding. It's more of what we had before, but it's told in past tense. So we open up, we're in the Batcave, and Damian has agreed to get his hair cut by Alfred. And he's like, look, I gave in and let you do it in the Batcave, so stop your fidgeting. And if you're so intent on doing something, then why don't you just tell me a story? Tell me something of, you mentioned something about the cutlass? And he's like, no, it was the bloodless blade. So fine, yes, I'll tell it to you. And so we cut over to a previous tale of some point when they were in China and they were trying to return an item, and Maya is like, hey, you said this place would be empty. Why are we fighting a bunch of ninjas here? And he's like, oh, no, I didn't say it'd be empty. I said nobody was living here. These are all undead snow ninja things that are protecting this place. And she's like, okay, well, you clearly knew what I meant the first time around, but fine, whatever. Why are they fighting us from returning the thing? And it's like, oh, this is sacred ground. No one's allowed here, yada, yada, point being. So they end up fighting off all the snow ninja stuff. And they're like, all right, you and Goliath should stay here because I don't know if you can handle what's in there. Well, last time I went in there, when I was stealing the spear in the first place, I walked in with some of the most elite assassins from the League of Assassins. And as we stepped in, all of a sudden, our hearts, our minds, they started being taken over, and everyone clenches their chests. And the elite soldiers or whatever just immediately fall down dead, but Damian manages to stand up and he's like, my heart feels like ice, but no, I am Damian Al Ghul and I am not an ordinary soul. I'm a take his stuff, man. And as he steps up, a hand from the statue grabs him, and Maya's like, what, so you had to fight a sacred immortal kung fu guy? And he's like, no, I didn't fight him. I stood there, I faced him down, and then like in the flashback it shows he's scared out of his mind. And he's like, and I got his weapon from him. And Maya's like, okay, then what's the problem? We'll give him back his fancy stick. Let's head in there. But Damian's like, no. He gave me a warning. He gave me one last warning. He says, look, one day I will return to this place. That's going to happen. And when I do, I will be tested at my very worst, and I will take and give twice as much. And so Maya doesn't care. They all step into the thing together. It's freezing cold in there, but Damian's like, wait a minute, something's different. Something's changed since the last time I was in here. And as they approach towards the statue, and she's basically like, yeah, I only took it because it was proof that I was able to face this trial. It's something important here. When all of a sudden there's a big flash of light, Maya's like, well, you should have warned me something like this would happen. He's like, this didn't happen before. I don't know what's happening. And then all of a sudden, this smoke starts billowing out from the eyes of the statue. And they see two figures are standing behind the smoke. So Damian immediately gets punched in the face. Maya, a figure who's dressed conspicuously like her, leaps over her and throws her into a wall. And we immediately see that these two are a grown-up future version of Damian and Maya. And they immediately get the younger version pinned down, and they're like, yes, I'm Damian, nothing stands in my way. And Maya says, I am truly nobody now, and let justice be done. So fight continues on. Goliath hears all this going on. He steps inside the cave. He wants to see if he can help. And then out comes this giant, much more damaged and battle-scarred Goliath, which causes young baby Goliath to just whimper off in fear. So we see that Damian immediately puts two and two together. He's like, okay, this is an illusion or a test or something. This is the version of me if I were to continue down the path of evil and whatever else before, if I don't do whatever. So he's fighting against the thing. Other Maya, nobody, I'll call her, nobody is fighting against Maya and saying like, oh, you're helping the one you swore to destroy. I'm going to murder the both of you in order to fulfill our justice quest and whatever. So Damian's fighting with the spear he stole. It gets cut in half. And as they are both down on their knees, like being choked out by their older versions, the statue once again says its thing. It's like, oh, you will take and give twice as much and blah, blah, blah. And Damian's like, okay, look, I acknowledge you are at my worst. I am arrogant and bloodthirsty and who I could have been and who I might still be if I ignore you and let things continue on. But instead, I accept you. And then I guess Maya does the same, but she doesn't say anything. And they both disappear into dust. Their weapons fall to the ground. And it's like, okay, we both accept you, but we will not become you. And so Damian sets the two halves of the spear up on the thing, and he's like, there, two pieces. I give twice what I once took. And Maya's like, that's still one spear, bro. That doesn't count. So she takes the sword that was left over, puts it there as well. Just saying, like, that's now two things. So as they leave, the voice speaks out and says, you will not return again, but you will now carry the bloodless blade with you, and you now know yourselves, and you should be humbled, lest it strike from within you. And as they step outside the cave, all the ninjas are there. They're getting ready for an attack, but then the ninjas bow, and it's like, oh, cool. They respect us now. Nice. So as they're making their way out, trying to find where Goliath is, they're like, so about what you said, about how you'll never become that nasty, please don't. I don't like that version of you. And he's like, yeah, well, I should say the same to you. So as Goliath comes to, he's like keeping his distance from the temple. And they're like, oh, hey, what's up, buddy? Did something happen? Did you see something? Are you scared of the temple? And it's like, oh, okay, well, you don't have to come near the temple, buddy. We're good. We're all leaving now. So I guess maybe Goliath also accepted the other version of him, or there's just a giant evil Goliath now flying around outside, and who knows what that's about. So they all climb up on him and just like, all right, we spent enough time out in the cold here. Maybe your next redemption thing can be at a beach, please. And Damian just gives a smirk as they fly away. So we cut back to the haircut, and he's like, yeah, I never want to go to a pretentious temple like that again. And he's like, yes, quiet, Master Damian. Anyway, your haircut's done. It sounds like it was enlightening, though. You learned something here? He's like, yeah, I guess. Sure, whatever. So at that point, Damian looks down and he's like, look, I'm not done with the atonement. I went so far down that path that my mom set for me. I don't want to be what she envisioned me to become. And Alfred's like, oh, yeah, of course. Like, absolutely. So would you take your dinner down here or upstairs? And he's like, I'll take it for the road. The show, the adventures continue under Ray Fawkes. I like the story. It's just as much as it was anything else. I guess it feels like a passing of the torch in a way. It feels like this idea that, yeah, we had the stuff from before of of Gleason, where he was doing this story, but then it very quickly evolved into this. I don't know, some evil guy was like orchestrating the whole thing. I'll be honest, I'm still not entirely sure I understand the plot of what happened in like issues 5 and 6. But regardless, we had the evil guy orchestrating things, but like he still has his year of blood ahead of him. He's still doing this other stuff here. And I like the passing of the torch where we do a more classic story right now, and then we're going to lead into whatever Ray Fawkes' bigger ideas are as we round out the rest of the series. So I'm going to say it's probably going to be a 7.5 for me. I don't know what's keeping it from the 8. Maybe it just feels like it lacks a bit of teeth. Maybe it feels like it's a bit too similar to like the way too early stories and doesn't feel like it quite has the same punch to it because we already did the self-enlightenment stuff, but it's good. It's still a solid issue regardless, and I like the character dynamics, so 7.5. Sinestro number 19, written by Cullen Bunn, art by Neil Edwards and Brad Walker. So last issue, we had a bunch of rings going down to the planet and taking pretty much every superhero, anybody who was around. Now they're all part of the Sinestro Corps, particularly Harley, Deathstroke, Scarecrow, Wonder Woman, and Superman are the focused ones. So we see Sinestro's watching all the fighting going on from above Earth, around World and whatnot. And he's like, I always gave the Green Lanterns a hard time anytime that they didn't have full control of the situation. And now I'm a little humbled. This is maybe a little bit more difficult than I would have liked or whatever, but whereas the Green Lanterns would have completely collapsed under their mistake, the Sinestro Corps is going to totally nail it. And we see down on the Earth, like Superman's got on the Sinestro Corps, everyone's using their constructs and whatever else to help in the fight, and they are protecting people from the Pale Vicars and all that stuff. So as the fight's going on, they're like, hey, yeah, we got all those new rings or whatever, and that's super cool. It managed to weaken them slightly for a little bit, but now they've adapted, and all of the yellow energy is once again being kind of filtered out. Like, how are we supposed to fight him? And we see, I want to say Nissa, but I don't feel like that's her name. Nissa Drax? Maybe. Either way, she's like, stop using your rings then. Like, use it to help, but like start using your natural features. Do what you can. And we see that one of the Vicars is going to attack a whole bunch of humans that are standing there just doing their own thing. And Arquillo comes in to save the day. He pulls up a bit of the street to block the blast. And one of the people there was like, look, mommy, it's a superhero. And Arquillo's like, oh my God. So we then go back up to the fight between Mongol and Black Adam. And Black Adam's like, I defeated the leader of your kind prior to this, so you're not going to be any problem. Yeah, you're Mongol. Like, that must be great, but you ain't going to be able to take on me. And then Black Adam gets his throat squeezed, and he's like, you stir the heresy of anger within me. For that, you must be punished. And he just like throws Black Adam through Warworld. So Sinestro's sitting there talking to Soranik and is like, okay, what do we do here? How do we solve this out? And we see that one of the Vicars approaches Sinestro, but that's where Nax, the vivisection one, the one that can psychically just rip people apart, comes in and just vaporizes the Vicars as they come to approach Sinestro. And just like, all right, well, that's useful. We should do that. But Soranik's like, look, all the rings that you give down on Earth, hopefully they have powers even like kind of similar, because that's about the only thing that's working out for us right now. He's like, oh, well, I haven't mattered, like, whatever at all. I haven't given the rings to people down there. They've earned them. So whoever's fighting, they're going to be worth it. And we see Superman and Wonder Woman teaming up, and Superman's like, oh, okay, I can, Sinestro's actually trying to help people. Got it. Cool. Great. Need it. So we see, like, Scarecrow's doing stuff. Harley's got, like, a boxing glove, rocket launcher. Deathstroke's using just a construct sword, because why not? And they're all explaining how the fear is not necessarily a bad thing, and it's just recapping all the stuff before. There's different types of fear. The fear of madness, the fear of a trained killer, all of these things, which all kind of come down to the same thing, but, it's different types of fear. It's not necessarily good or evil. It's just fear, and it can be used as such. However, he then points out, as we see everyone starting to fail, that the lack of any emotion is impossible to fill with just fear alone. Like, it's very hard to overcome that with just the idea of fear. So when they said, Sorenek's like, look, when we sent down all the rings, it gave a little surge of energy. It gave us a little bump that we were able to capitalize on. What if we just do that again? And he's like, all right, well, I mean, it's only going to be a temporary thing. It's not going to last. How would you assume that we would be able to get even more yellow energy out of it? To which she points over to the Manhunters that have been turned over and says, we tap into the yellow rings that powered them. That'll give us a big enough shot in the arm. So Manhunters 80 through 100 start recruiting more people, and we see all the rings going down to Earth. And Sinestro's like, I tried to cull the Sinestro Corps for so long. I was wrong. We need more. And we see rings go out to Constantine, Black Manta, Deadman, Etrigan, the Creeper, and someone from the Great 10 that I recognize from Justice League International, but I cannot remember his name. And at that point, once all the rings start going down, they start using their energies. The entirety of the Pale Vicars, the church starts like just giving off a anti-emotional wave, and it's a big blast. It's what seems like one of their final things, and it starts washing over different members, and they all just immediately crumble into the zombie-looking forms. So at that point, Serenek's like, if we don't withdraw, like, we're screwed. And Sinestro's like, well, if we do withdraw, we lose Earth. So what are we supposed to do here? And Serenek's like, look, if we all get wiped out, then there's no hope for the planet at all. And Sinestro's like, wait a minute, hope. That's right, I was setting something up a couple issues ago. So he calls out Saint Walker, who apparently has been re-educated to understand all the stuff about how fear is not intrinsically bad and can be used in the idea of will. That will and fear are not opposites. They can be coexisting with each other. So because of that, St. Walker can come out and now boost all of the Yellow Lantern rings up to 200%. And so now they're able to start cutting through the Pale Vicar's energy. We see that Black Adam comes up against Mongol, and he's like, oh, you're afraid now, Mongol, and for good reason. And as far as I could tell, he might smash Mongol's head in, but we don't actually get to see it, just a loud yell. At that point, the Manhunters return to Sinestro, and they're like, hey, we found your guy, the Pale Bishop. We know where he is. And they're like, oh, cool, excellent, let's go. Take me to the Pale Bishop. And Sorenek's like, wait a minute, you're not going to face him alone. He's like, no, I'm not. Of course I'm not. And they're like, well, how do you intend to, like, get in there? You can't, he's wherever he is, I'm sure he's well guarded. And that's when one of the Manhunters opens their faceplate to show an Indigo Tribe ring, which allows for teleportation. And he's like, yep, we're just going to teleport over there. And so Sinestro, along with Sorenek, appear right next to the Pale Bishop and say, all right, final confrontation time. Whether it is or not, who knows? But that's what we're billing it as. It's okay. I look at this issue and I question what it's done. I question, like, what substantially has changed between the beginning of the issue to the end of the issue. It doesn't need to be a lot. I'm not saying I need, like, we need to be like 400 miles down the road. We need the entire rest of the story all done in one issue. No, I'm fine with decompression in comics. I do not have an issue with that. But I look at this and I think, okay, well, the first thing we did is that we show all the heroes that got the yellow rings fighting and they're successful. Then we show how they start to fail. Then we get more yellow rings sent out and they become successful again. And then we go to the Pale Bishop's fight. What is the difference between step 1 and 3? The heroes get the rings and they're successful, and then more heroes get the ring and they're more successful. Like, it's good for a splash page. It's a nice thing to see of him, like, doing all these heroes and villains and such around the DCU, but, like, that's like 7 pages that could have just been completely changed over to be something else. Like, I don't know. I question how much of this really needed to happen here. Maybe you could have done more with Black Adam and Mongol. Maybe you could have done more with, like, oh no, there's members that, like, we actually care about are dying because of this wave, instead of just random no name who cares number 75. I just feel like this issue was going for rule of cool, which is fine. You can do that, but I don't feel like it's any different than the rule of cool we got last issue, where they joined the Corps to begin with. So, I'm going to say this one is I'm just going to say a 7. I think it still looks good. I still like the moments in it, like on their own without looking at the whole series. But like, it's a low 7 because I feel like if there were any issue that you could just absolutely skip, it's this one. I don't think there was anything in this that contributed to the arc as a whole. It's just there. So yeah, 7 for this. Hopefully we'll actually have the final battle next issue. Batgirl number 47, written by Brendan Fletcher and Cameron Stewart, art by Eleonora, Carlini, and Moritat. Sounds correct. So, been a while since last issue. This one had a little bit of a delay to it, which made it very difficult to remember what happened prior. Luckily, we open up with kind of just a recap, more or less, of what was happening. We see Batgirl's on a rooftop with Spoiler, and she's saying, like, Spoiler's like, hey, so you think it's safe for me to go back to my apartment, that people won't be after me, and the whole Catwoman thing is resolved? And she's like, yes, Spoiler, you're good to go. However, I actually have something I could use your help with. Not your help specifically, but you said you had a roommate who was really good with, like, computer stuff and was also part of, like, our community. And she's like, oh, yeah, totally. In fact, you probably already met her. She's actually worked with Batman. And then in walks Harper Row, aka Bluebird, and she's like, hey, hi, I'm Bluebird. We actually met before during Batman Eternal. And Batgirl's like, uh-huh. I don't remember. And she's like, all right, well, I thought I made a big impression, but I guess not, whatever. So Batgirl's like, okay, look, let's talk shop. Come over here. I got a whole thing here going on here. Operator, start the mission. She calls over to Frankie. Basically, she's saying, look, there was some information that my team had, that I had specifically, that somehow got out. The GCPD is storing my data somehow. I want to know what it is. We got to go in there. We got to hack it and look for clues as to who provided them with that information. Okay. And they're like, okay, sounds fine. You'll get us the details. She's like, right, will do. You guys just stay put. And she hops on her motorcycle and jumps off of a building, to which point they're like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So turns out Barbara was talking about how she is an insider inside the GCPD. She goes to lunch with her dad, and her dad is in full, like, shaved mustache and what you can charitably call a mohawk. And he's like, look, I get that you want me to help you out in there, but, like, I don't really work for the GCPD right now. I got another job, quote unquote, but, like, it's not quite the same. We're working for the powers industry, and the powers industry is kind of using the GCPD, but, like, I'm not part of the police. It's a long story, but, like, I don't think I can really help you out here, okay? And also, she brings up Greg, and I swear to God, I was having a stroke because I couldn't remember anything about Greg. Turns out it was like 2-panel throwaway comment last issue. So Greg is chilling at her apartment, like sleeping on the couch for a while. So at that point, he's like, look, I'm just having a lot of stuff at home, a lot of problems there. I need you to help me out here. And the whole long of the story is someone is hacking into my personal stuff and is using it to make arrests. There's a woman. She gave me info in solidarity. She wouldn't have shared it otherwise. And then it got leaked out and someone was arrested. And Gordon's just like, look, I wish I could tell you that the police force wouldn't be doing that, but, like, it's messed up, man. There's a lot of messed up things going on over there. And, like, I'm not entirely sure that they wouldn't do that. So regardless, if you need help, if you need anything, tell me. I can make sure Batman is there to help you out. And she's like, no, I don't want to make things any worse for you. It's fine. I'm just going to go get into this myself. And he's like, excuse me, young lady, you are a college student, not a vigilante. You are not about to go do that. And she's like, shut up, Dad. I'll be careful. I have a right to do this myself. And he's like, all right, whatever. So we then cut over to Barbara's house, where apparently Frankie caught Greg going through Barbara's underwear drawer, to which point he says, no, remember you told me I could borrow a charger. You said it was in the dresser. I just didn't know what drawer it was in. And she's like, I did say that. Bottom drawer. Frankie, can I have a word? And Frankie's like, are we really letting this creep live in this house? Because I swear to God, I'm not cool with him. And she's like, look, you made a bad call. He's fine. Don't worry about him. We got bigger things. We're doing that thing tonight. We got 3 hours. And she's like, fine. Okay, boss. So we get to see what the whole plan here is. Barbara and Spoiler go dressed in as cops. They walk straight in through the front door of the GCPD. We see Frankie is on her laptop, keeping track of all like the data, the ins and outs and whatever else. And Harper is down in the electrical system, physically hacking into wires. So they make their way into the building. Barbara notices Liam Powell, the ex-boyfriend, is in the area, and she's like, oh god, we gotta keep away from that guy. It didn't end well between us. So they make their way through, and they eventually get their way over to one of the computers, where Barbara gets a text from Kadir saying, hey, big news, you gotta call me ASAP. We never know what that is. But we see like, okay, let's access the computer, and they do whatever they need to, and they find out that the only line going in or out of the GCPD is for power. So that must be the one they want. As they are doing this, Spoiler starts getting hit on by some other cop who has captured this supervillain and is in dampening gloves or whatever. And she's like, so why don't I take you around and I'll show you the locker rooms? And she's like, I need to take a shower. And he's like, great. So as they get in there, we see that Frankie's like, hey, okay, I found out who put in the data. It says it's you. It says Barbara Gordon provided the data. And she's like, but that's impossible. And then all of a sudden their hack was tracked. The alarms start going out. Everything goes on lockdown. The cop realizes, wait a minute, you're not real cops. Put your hands in the air. And then, like, they do. And he starts to slowly put together, like, wait a minute, I recognize the red-haired one. That's right, you're Gordon's girl. And Barbara's just like, shut it down. And so Harper, down in the electrical system, turns off all the power. Everything's pitch black. And they start making their escape. They start sprinting out as fast as they can. As they move through the hallways, they get changed to their costumes. Barbara's like, I know this like the back of my hand. I've walked these halls for so long. I don't need any lights. And as they make a turn, I guess Barbara forgot where they were going. And we see that they run headfirst into a bunch of SWAT people. And Spoiler calls her out like, oh, okay, yeah, you know where you're going. But before the SWAT people can do anything, we see that supervillain that was caught, that was in the dampener gloves, the dampener gloves shut off when the power did. So now she's out, and her name is Corporal Punishment. And Spoiler's like, thank you for the assist, but we didn't want those fine, upstanding policemen to get hurt. To which Corporal Punishment says, I want to hurt everybody, including you. And then a big fight scene breaks out. Spoiler throws a few punches. It doesn't do anything. Barbara throws a few concussive bombs. Still doesn't do anything. And only when Barbara wraps her cape around Corporal Punishment's head, Spoiler remembers something that the cop said when he was hitting on her, that she got all of her muscles replaced with like cyborg ligaments. They're all electronic based. So Spoiler grabs a taser off the belt of one of the cops and uses it to tase Corporal Punishment and take him out. Or sorry, no, she tries to do that, but she can't get to the taser. And then Harper shows up and tases and takes her out. So they all manage to escape from the GCPD. We see that apparently one of the responses for being in the dark is the robot Batmen start showing up. And they're like, that's crazy. Anyway, time to get back out of here. So they bail, and they're like, all right, well, we got a little bit of information. Someone is using Barbara Gordon's name to put in all of this stuff to like, it's someone who knows me intimately. And also there's robot army of Batman. So that's concerning. So we cut to the next day, and we see Barbara's talking to Luke and is like, hey, look, someone's messing with me. This is just like the previous arc where it was an AI who thought it was me, but like, this is something else. This is something bigger. And then Kadir comes in and it's like, hey, by the way, remember how you sent me that blueprint for that horrible doomsday machine and I said that we could patent it? I made some adjustments, and it's probably safe now, as long as all of your mathematical stuff was done correctly. And she's like, I just don't know anymore. So we see her walking down with Luke, and Luke's trying to calm her down. But she's like, look, I couldn't remember meeting Harper Row. I lost my like place in the floor plans of the GCPD. Something is wrong with my memory, and that's kind of a big part of my character. So like, I feel like I'm losing my mind. And Luke's like, okay, all right, well, we can get some sleep, do whatever, and then we can talk about those blueprints. And she's like, I don't want to do the blueprints. Are you not listening to me? Like, that thing was originally a weapon. What happens if I got it wrong? I would be responsible for destroying all of Gotham. And Luke says, hey, that's not going to happen. It's okay. So we cut to Barbara being asleep, and then all of a sudden that weird shadowy figure thing enters into her room. We see that it's able to literally pull up her memories of that conversation, and it just twists them and warps them around until now, instead of saying that thing was a weapon and it could destroy the world and like she'd be responsible for the destruction of Gotham, now she says it could save the city, it could save the world, and let's do it. Let's take the risk and to save the world and start the company. And then we see the shadow figure smiling because it did a good thing in its eyes, question mark. Yeah, I like the issue. I think it's paced well. I think it does a lot correct here. I really don't have any negative notes. It's just a matter of it feels very repetitious of the previous arc. But like, they bring that up. They bring up the idea of like, the previous arc did something similar to this. What are we looking at here? And I don't know if that's better or worse. I don't know if it's better that they're acknowledging it, or worse that like they know it was there and they're still doing it either way. So Stolen Identity Barbara Gordon might be one of those plots that needs to be put down for a while. One of those ones where it's like, yeah, no, we get it. Everyone is Oracle and nobody is. So I'm going to say this is a... I wasn't having as much fun as I did last issue. I'll say 7. It's okay. It's good. It's not great. It's just the middle part of whatever this arc is going to be. Wonder Woman number 48, written by Meredith Finch, art by David Finch. So I want to say continued on from last issue, but last issue really was just kind of a one-shot. So this issue, completely new stuff. We pick up in Western Europe, where there's some sort of crime thing going on. We see there's this big manor and this windowless van full of stuff is being driven inside. And then, like, as it gets up to the front gate, the guy is like, thank you for your years of service, but we all made sacrifices. And then he shoots the van driver in the head. So down inside the manor, we see this place belongs to Dr. Maru, and she is a scientist who is working on stuff. It's not clear what it is yet, but she's like, okay, everything should be ready to go in the next 24 hours. Have your men check everything. And she's talking to like this general-looking guy who's there. And she's like, hey, look, did we find the neurochemist? Like, what happened there? And he's just like, oh, well, we're still looking for the prisoner that escaped, but like no sign of them have been found. And the wolves are awfully hungry this time of year, so there might not be anything to find. And Dr. Maru's like, well, I'm going to hold you personally accountable for whatever happens here, so you better damn well hope that there's nothing more to find. And apparently this whole thing is based off neurobiology, yada, yada, yada. But they managed to finish up the formula before the prisoner escaped. And so as the general is trying to explain himself, Dr. Maru just reaches out and touches his cheek, and then she's dead. Or he's dead, like immediately. So we see that they have a whole convoy going down a treacherous mountain road out in the rain, and she gives her whole backstory where, as a young child, her parents were into poisons and biological weapons. American spies reached out and said, hey, work for us. And they said, nah, we don't want to do that. And then the Russians showed up and labeled them as terrorists and sent them to Siberia. So she was just left on her own or whatever. And she found out years later that they had died at the hands of Russian interrogators. So at that point, she seems to put it on the Americans. She's like, they're the ones to blame for the Russians labeling them as terrorists. So I'm going to make them pay by murdering their president, because that'll show them. And as this convoy is moving down the road, Wonder Woman just stands in the middle and says, I got him, Cyborg. And she just punches this truck right in the middle of the vent. However, turns out that I'm just going to call her Dr. Poison. She's Dr. Poison. She takes the name later on. She's Dr. Maru. Dr. Poison is like, haha, we just got word. Wonder Woman took the bait. We had a decoy truck. It was being down that road. So I will be able to get to London to unleash my poison and take out those Americans once and for all. Now, if you're thinking at that point, wait a minute, hold on, pause. London isn't in America. You're right. We'll get to it. So Wonder Woman, after she's beat up this convoy, is like, wait, Cyborg, this was a decoy. None of these are real. We have to stop Dr. Maru before she puts innocent people at risk, because the G8 summit is in London tomorrow, and therefore the president will be there. And also apparently because Russia is so at odds with the rest of Europe, it's a powder keg. It's waiting to go. So we go to the G8 in London. We see people are starting to arrive. Wonder Woman's watching inner cities from the crowd, and she's talking to Cyborg like, I don't feel good about this. I don't like the fact that we couldn't find them before this point. Like, I knew that the biological weapon would show up after the neurobiologist talked to us and blah, blah, blah. But, like, when are they going to target the president? Clearly, it needs to be somewhere around here. So let's just keep our eyes open. And we see that as the president arrives, Cyborg picks up, there's a little bit of electricity, an electrical signal being cloaked like over top of them. So she yells out, Mr. President, get down. And she uses her lasso of truth to reveal a drone with just a canister of poison on the bottom. And she pulls it out of the sky, but it's dropping too fast. So it crashes to the ground. And she says, somebody's got to cover that up. Someone puts their coat over top of it. And she's like, great. If you see anything coming out, get everybody the hell out of here. I'm gonna figure out where the driver of the drone was. So she flies over all of London, and she immediately locks onto Maru. And she's like, Maru, stop. I've got you. No sense running. The president is safe. She's basically telling her to surrender now. Her plans failed. And she's like, ho, but that was only just one poison. And also she takes the name poison at this point. So she gets caught up in the lasso of truth, but she reaches just quick enough down to her belt to unload what seems to be like a tear gas canister. And she's like, that's why you need a backup plan. So she unloads it in this crowd in London, and turns out it's not tear gas, obviously. It's also not really poison. It's a neurological thing. As we said, the neurobiologist was there, and it's supposed to be essentially PCP, where it makes everyone super aggressive, and she just guides them to fighting Wonder Woman. So at that point, she's like, look, I'm dropping the name Maru. From now on, it's Dr. Poison. And she pulls out a gun, aims it at Wonder Woman, ends up shooting one of the civilians, and she's like, all right, well, go off, be your superhero, and lead the real world to the people who are ready for war. And Wonder Woman's like, war isn't the answer. It never has been. She's like, that's stupid. That's the only thing that's ever made change in the world. So Maru runs off. Wonder Woman cares for the guy who was injured as everyone else starts coming down from the PCP. And she's like, okay, look, Cyborg, can you call down something to help here? Like, is he going to be fine? And Cyborg's like, yeah, he's fine. Don't worry about it. Go off. The ambulance will be there in 2 minutes. So Wonder Woman runs off and immediately catches up to Maru. Like, not even a problem. And she tackles her down, and she holds her up, and she gives her a little, end of the very special episode speech of like, there's no place for this in my city or in this world for terrorism. And I'm going to make sure that you get put away for that. And Maru's like, you stupid idiot. As she's being loaded in the back of police cars, she's like, now I know your weakness. You think you're a hero, but you're just a pawn for the Americans, and you will pay for your misplaced allegiance. Ha 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 ha. And Wonder Woman's like, no, I'm never going to let this happen again. And as the police take her away, she grins and then bites down on a capsule in her mouth, which, of course, more poison. So Wonder Woman then goes to a coffee house. I guess she didn't hear about this, or she didn't care about it. And she goes and sits down with Hesia, and Hesia's like, okay, well, look, your problem here is that you are upset because you don't understand like how someone like her can exist. How can someone with such a twisted mindset? How do terrorists really work? Is your kind of question here. And like, yeah, none of us are born bad. It's all just the way our culture shapes us, the way that our lives shape us. And some people have bad stuff like that, but that's why the Justice League is important, is because it inspires hope and inspires the best of us. And she's like, all right, yeah, that does make me feel better. I'm glad I can have a friend like you, Hesia. So that plot's done. And then the last 2 pages is we see, I always blank on her name, Zola? I think it's Zola. Zola running through Olympus, calling for Hera desperately. Finally, Hera wakes up like, what? What is it? And we see Zola's holding Zeke and says there's something wrong with him. What exactly? We don't know. He doesn't look any different. There's nothing else. There's just something wrong with him. So I guess that's where we're going. I don't like it. I don't know. I don't even know why I don't like it. I just don't like it. It's not that it's a bad issue. Art-wise, it's fine. I think even writing-wise, for the most part, it's fine. But it just feels so, I don't know, Silver Agey? That's wrong. But, like, it's so just out of place. We were doing this whole long story thing. We were doing this big thing of, like, Donna Troy and how the Amazons are, like, rejecting Wonder Woman. And, like, we wrapped all that up. I know. I get it. The story's done. But now it feels like there just isn't a story. Now it just feels like, here's Wonder Woman standing for truth, justice, and the American way all the time. Like, fine, I guess, but like between the Cheetah issue last time and then this issue this time, I get there's probably a larger story being told. I think maybe Dr. Poison will be a part of that, but this particular story, it just feels like it feels like the American Djangoism that we got like post 9/11, where it's just like, and terrorism is never okay. It's like, yeah, no one's arguing that. No one's saying that, like, you know, maybe just like a little bit of terrorism, maybe just like a tiny little bit. No, clearly not. How fast can I get demonetized? Yeah, no. Something in it just, it felt too preachy in a way. It felt too just out of place. I get Wonder Woman's like standing up and just being the hero here, but it feels so simplistic and so just like, okay, and like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop and it just never did. So I'm going to say 6.5 for this one. I would probably say a 6 if the art wasn't like really, really good, which it is. It is great art, but like, I don't know. It didn't work for me. Dr. Fate number 8, written by Paul Levitz, art by Ibrahim Moustafa. So, whole previous arc happened. A lot of flooding. That's all you need to know. There's a lot of flooding, and we had Khalid basically coming into his own here, trying to figure out how to work his powers. Apparently, there is a monastery in France that was especially susceptible to the flooding, and like his mom, Khalid's mom, who is Christian, is like, oh no, that place was so beautiful. I need to like, it's so great. It's a tragedy. It's falling apart now because of the flood. And so Khalid goes off to try to help to go fix it. And we see rocks are literally falling off the walls as he approaches. And he's just like, all right, my previous thing I was told in the last issue is heal the world. What does that even mean? Where am I can't heal the whole world, but maybe I can just start with this one hyper-specific spot. And as the rocks are coming down, we see there's a full-on crucifix with Jesus attached to it that takes Khalid down, and he lands down in the water. But he manages to come to quick enough. He's like, okay, I was able to manipulate the water. Like, my whole thing that I believe my powers are is being able to use natural energy. So I'm going to steal some from the tides here. And he catches the rocks in the air with some wave cyclone things. And he lifts it back up to the wall. And I don't know if this is just like an art thing or what he actually sees, but we see like an outline of where these are supposed to go. And he's like, oh, well, I guess after hundreds of years, the rocks kind of just know their place. So he pushes it all back exactly where it's supposed to be. And he's like, cool, worked. Great, fantastic. However, he hears a voice from down the coast. And as he sees, there is an angel, or at least a very beautiful woman at first, who is holding a bubble that has Naboo in it. And he's just like, who the hell are you? And she's like, you done the Lord's work today, kid. Whether or not you believe in it or not, they like you up top. So just know that he, with a capital H, loves you. And then the bubble with Naboo pops, and then she disappears. And Khalid's like, Naboo, what the hell was that? And Naboo's like, you do not have the wisdom of Thoth or whatever, so you don't know. But like, don't worry about it. And he's like, all right, thanks for nothing, man. So we cut over to, I can never remember her name, the girlfriend of Khalid, and she's pissed off because Khalid's not responding to texts, isn't answering calls or whatever. So she's like drafting an angry text, and then all of a sudden Puck jumps in the window, the cat, which is obviously actually, I think, Thoth in disguise, and she's like, "Hey Puck, how'd you find me? Like, what are you doing a long way from home?" And the cat's like, "Stop being angry at your boyfriend. You don't do that anymore." And she like falls under a trance, and he's like, "Are you angry anymore?" And she's like, "No." And he's like, "Fine, great, bye." He just dips out. So we cut down to a pier in Brooklyn where Khalid's just talking to his dad. And I guess he's like totally open about all the superhero stuff with his dad. He's just saying it all, and he's like, "Yeah, no, I mean, we have the Pharaoh's blood in us, and I got dissected by Anubis, like all that happened, but then I saw an angel today. What's that about?" And the dad's like, "If you weren't such like a trustworthy son, I would absolutely have you committed. Do you want me to have you committed? Like, would that help?" And he's like, "No, not really. Thanks." He's like, "I'm just kidding. Don't worry about it. Look," and he basically talks and says like, "Look, I'm Muslim. That's the whole thing now. Like, we don't believe in the Egyptian gods inherently. We're Muslim now. But we see this other Islamic man come up, and he's like, look, regardless of if an angel like came to whatever, there is no God but Allah, and whether it sees good or ill to mortalize, if Allah has formed his angels, then like all this stuff." And he basically is just saying like, look, whatever you saw there, it was because of Allah. It was that's all you need to know, and that you need to take that as it is. And then all of a sudden there's an explosion downtown, and this guy's like, "You're being called, you should go do that." And at no point did this guy identify himself, say whatever, but there is a suspicious shadow that seems to show that he has wings. So Khalid takes off. We see that a freeway has collapsed downtown. There's a bunch of cars in the wreckage and such like that. And he's like, "Oh, yes, yeah, I've been so worried about that other place. I didn't care about my hometown. I guess I should do something here." And we see that there's this girder that's holding up the freeway. It's crumpled. It's about to give way. He's trying to figure out how he can fix it. He's like, "Do I have strength? Like, what can I do? I don't have an engineering degree. I'm not sure what this needs here." But we see another car is slowly careening off the edge. It starts to fall down. Khalid saves the guy from inside, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, praise you, praise Allah," all that stuff. And then he comes over and he steals some energy from some nearby like fire and whatever, some fuels, and he manages to use it to straight up just straighten out the girder. It reforms its natural shape. And he's like, "Okay, all right. Well, I may not be getting any answers from Naboo or Allah or Jesus Christ himself, but like, I'm figuring this out. I'm doing this on my own. So I'll just use what I learn and try to do whatever I can." And he realizes there's so many more to go, but he's doing his best. We then cut over to the United Nations, where apparently there's a huge protest thing. There's some cops holding it down, and the cops are like, "Yeah, this happened." Like, everyone's always pissed off all the time, and it's always about whatever atrocities happening over in some other country, and they like expect us to do something about it, to let them like them protesting here isn't going to do anything to stop that sort of stuff. So they should just go back to their own country, is basically what the cops say. We then see that, I guess, whatever minister of whatever country is causing all of these problems comes up, and a bunch of protesters get through. They start like shaking the car, they flip it over, and we see that the driver of the car, or maybe the minister himself, is like, good, your anger feeds us. You are but slaves under his power." And then a horse has the glowing eyes, and it bumps into a protester and knocks her down. And I think the protester is that other girl that Khalid is, or that is interested in Khalid, but once again, I love a name. Just a reminder. So we see that Khalid is going down to the other part of the freeway, and he's like, "Okay, more parts are falling. Like, I got to figure out what to do here. And I don't have any other obvious natural energy sources to pull from. So maybe I can just pull from like the wind in the sky itself." So he pulls down some like twisters, some tornadoes, and he's like, "Okay, let's see if we can do it here. What's going on?" We see there's a news chopper seeing this that's like, after all the freak weather stuff that we had before, maybe this guy's the cause. Maybe he's the one that's messing everything up. Screw that guy, am I right? And Khalid's like, "Oh, God, yeah." maybe I could be a bit more sensitive about that. But we see it's basically not working, and some car just didn't see that all the road was gone out, so it starts going off the edge, and he's like, all right, well, I need to think of something else. I need to see what I can do here. So he falls back down to the ground, and he's like, Naboo, what do you got? And he's like, ask again later. And he's like, great, thanks. But he actually says something like, search inside yourself. The blood that built the pyramids is within you. And I'm like, oh, cool, slave labor? But he goes down to the ground and he grabs the ground itself, and he essentially causes an earthquake to rise up a pillar of rock to fill the gap between the roads and to get it to stop falling down anymore. And the news chopper is like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. I don't know what he was really trying to accomplish there. Like, that's not a solid fix or whatever, but if he is that level of power, he wouldn't be wasting time with just one little road if he were evil. He'd be causing mass chaos. So who is that masked man? He's probably doing good. And we see a bunch of police are looking at the newly formed mountain, and they're like, who the hell do we call for this? Jesus Christ. So we then see that Khalid makes a meeting with his former philosophy professor, I believe. And this was at his previous college. And he's just walking and talking, being like, look, I'm currently caught between a bunch of different religions. I got the Egyptian part of me, I got the Islamic part of me, and I got the Christian part of me. And all of them are saying to do different things. All of them are giving me slightly different advice, and I don't know what I'm actually supposed to do here. And the philosophy professor's like, okay, well, what are they specifically saying? It's like, oh, it's various different things of heal the world, but I don't know what that means. And he calls out saying well, heal the world translated, it could be tikkun olam, which is Hebrew actually. So do you also have Jewish? Is this a girl wanting you to convert? He's like, no, I don't know. It's not. And the philosophy professor basically comes down and say look, everyone is out to heal the world. Everyone's out there. That should be just the primary method of everybody. Go out, do good, try to make the world a better place, and then leave it in. That's don't be weighed down by it. Be freed by the challenge. That's the main thing here. So he's basically tells them look, whatever is demanded of you, you'll be able to succeed. And he's like, I don't think you fully comprehend the level I'm in over my head out here. And he's like, perhaps I know better than you think. So go off. You can do it. And as Khalid leaves, we see the professor, who was walking his dog the whole time, leans down to the dog and says, should I have told him that he's being watched over? And the dog responds, nah, if he doesn't get that by now, he's an idiot. So, yeah. I don't think it's a bad issue. I like the art in it. Ibrahim Moustafa does a great job here of, I'm so used to the Sonny Liu art style that it's weird to see them in a different style, but I still can pick up on who each of the characters are. So kudos there. I feel like this book, even since issue 1, has been dancing around big ideas. It's been dancing around it wants to say something big about fates, or this idea of religions and stuff like that, and belief, the power of faith and stuff like that, and how much is you have to take action for yourself versus how much is predestined for you. I like the ideas, but this book is just constantly dancing around them. And this issue feels the most like it's really trying to say something specific of, this is what we're doing here, but then it throws in all this weird stuff of an angel shows up. This random man who I assume comes from some sort of myth of Islam or something also shows up. The philosophy professor is doing whatever. Naboo is saying whatever. And it's all so cryptic and so hidden beneath layers that it doesn't feel like I'm actually getting the tale that they're trying to tell me. It feels like just a slideshow of people telling Khalid, you can do it. And maybe that's the point, but I feel like there's this larger idea that could be touched upon, and it's so much more interesting. So 6.5. I just was a little unhappy reading it, but I think the book has potential. I genuinely believe that it really could hit on something cool here. I'm just waiting for it to find its footing. So 6.5. Martian Manhunter number 8, written by Rob Williams, art by Eddy Barrows. So last issue, this is stuff. Turns out that Mars, we had young Alicia's now old Alicia. There's an army on Mars. Potentially, Martian Manhunter John does not want to do the thing he was enlisted to do, and this issue's kind of just elaborating on that. So Earth and Mars now share a single point in space-time, and he talks about how Olympus Mons was this biggest mountain volcano thing on Mars, and it has since exploded, and so soon will all of Earth and also Mars. So John's watching over the Martian people, and he's just like, oh geez, what am I supposed to do? How do I save all of the Martians and also all the people of Earth? That's really hard. But the Martians look up and they're like, hey, like, it's our weapon. It's the weapon of the Martian Manhunter. And they're like, oh wait, you know me? And they're like, yeah, of course we know you. You were a champion, created for us, whatever, all that. And like, are you going to save us from Earth up in the sky to do that thing? And they're like, wait a minute, hold on. You're saying that you want to save us, but also you're saying Mars is dying? The deal with the portal to Mars was that it was the living Mars, not the dying Mars. What are you talking about? It's like, oh yeah, Mars is diseased. It's Malalfalak or whatever his name is. He showed up all these years ago, and he's been slaughtering us for years. We've been doing what we can. We come to this old city for safety. That's the most we can do. And Martian Manhunter's like, wait a minute, hold on. Malalfalak went through the portal with me. How has he been here for years? And this little itty bitty Martian baby's like, hey, are you a hero? And he looks around the people. He's like, yeah, I'm a hero. I'll figure out how to save you. So we go out to the Martian desert where we see this giant moving fortress moving through, and Daryl Wessel's in there, and he's like, you know, I can see Baltimore from Earth up in the sky, and my brother lives there, but I guess I don't have a brother because I'm a Martian, made to think that I was an FBI agent. I'm kind of having a crisis of identity here. And as he's freaking out, we see Alicia's like, wow, that's it, huh? You just gave up? You just, that's all it took? That's all I expected from you, but still. And he's just like, what are you talking about? Like, this is way outside my pay zone. What are you talking about? How was I supposed to deal with any of this? And he's like, you're the Martian Manhunter. You did this. Whether you're aware of it or not, it is you. You are not on the side of Earth. Absolutely not. And he's just like, what do you do? We tried to stop the plane from going through the portal. Me and Mr. Biscuits, like, that's got to count for something. She's like, no, it doesn't. You are a Martian weapon of mass destruction. That's the words. So Alicia then gives her backstory. What happened? She was left alone in the airport after they hopped on the plane. She was immediately attacked by the Martian Man-Eater, and so she had to spend all of this time inside of Malalfalak's, or no, sorry, that wasn't Malalfalak's. Martian Man-Eater has his like dark magic or whatever in there, so they were like whispering lies of how she was abandoned and all this other stuff, trying to make her whatever. But then they went through the portal. And when they went through the portal, all of the white Martians that made up the Martian Man-Eater were brought through as well, including her. And turns out that for whatever reason, the spell went wrong. Something bad happened. And so she was not only able to breathe now on Mars, but also it's 20 years prior. And so she was just left here. On top of that, all of the people in the plane were also brought through the portal, and they were sent back 20 years. And so she's been essentially building up this group, this army, whatever, to his seal their forces and try to make it so that it can continue to live here on Mars. They've been fighting this whole time. However, Malalfalak, he was so pissed off that Martian Manhunter did not show up through the portal as he was supposed to with Malalfalak, that he has been killing all of the Martians and all the humans he can find in order to try to trigger the end of the spell or like whatever's supposed to happen. And so he's going the full genocide route. That's essentially, and so Martians have now teamed up alongside the humans to fight against Malalfalak. And meanwhile, now that Martian Manhunter, the actual John Jones, have shown up, it's all coming to fruition. They've locked onto his signal, so it's like, all right, now's our final stand. We're going to take out Malalfalak until nothing left is there, and also we'll take out the Martian Manhunter afterwards because he's the cause of all this. So we go to the city, and he's just saying like, okay, my people, we have interstellar capability. We can leave the planet. Why have we not done that? And they're like, there's a bubble or something keeping us in. It's Maflak's issue. Like he's been keeping us here. It's something with the spell. Either way, he's found us, and now we see the whole city's being like catching on fire or whatnot. Throughout the bottom of the city, tendrils start rising up. A subterranean war city, like a war world, but smaller, comes out. And we see Maflak's the one who is running that, and he's like, at last, Martian Manhunter, you've shown up. Get your ass out here. I'm gonna use your body as fuel for my black blood magic. And Martian Manhunter's like, you've killed so many of our people here. I am not cool with that. How dare you? And then he yells to transform the war city. Maflak yells to transform the war city into mech mode. So now there's this giant ass mech that Martian Manhunter is trying to fight along with a bunch of Maflak's drones and soldiers and whatever else. And he's like, you want to see how your weapon fights? All right, let's do it. And Maflak's like, look, you cursed Mars. Whatever you did when you entered the portal, your splitting of yourselves and all that, it messed up. It messed up the spell. That's why Earth and Mars are currently on a collision course. That's why everything went wrong. This is all your fault, but I can complete the blood magic. I can recreate the portal, and I can get the hell out of here. So I don't care for you. I hate you so much that I might actually love you. But regardless, I'm going to kill you to do it. So then we got to Mr. Biscuits and Pearl, who are still locked in the human jail. Mr. Biscuit's like, hey, Mars isn't so bad. I mean, it's got a giant war city mech and all that sort of stuff, so that's neat. We see that Pearl is basically like, look, I don't even know what to do here. I was human. Like, I thought I was human just 24 hours ago, so, like, who even knows what to do at this point? And Mr. Biscuit's like, oh, yeah, I get you're confused now, and, like, I'm a little confused, too, but, like, hold on. I'm getting a memory spike. Let me just think for a minute. Where are the biscuit shops on Mars? And Pearl's like, there aren't any. Biscuits are an Earth thing. There are no biscuits on Mars. To which then Mr. Biscuit just destroys his cell. And it means like, well, we have to open the portal and save them both because you gotta save the biscuits. Can't live in a world where there aren't any biscuits or die on a world without any biscuits. And so he says, look, I saw there was a Mars child out there. He seems to know what's going on. Let's go talk to him. And... Sorry, this book just went crazy. So as the Mars child is watching the fight between the mech and Martian Manhunter, he's like, they're doomed to rip each other in pieces. I'm hoping that Mars can show me heroes if you still have them. So Martian Manhunter eventually gets shocked by some energy harpoons, and Maflak's like, yes, pump him with energy so he can't phase out of it. He'll be trapped. You bring the weapon to me. Meanwhile, Alicia pulls up in her roaming city, her fortress, and she's like, all right, there's Maflak. He's not getting away this time. Engage heavyweight mode. And the entire roaming fortress, made out of the parts of this airplane and other bits of tech from the planet, transforms into its own giant mech. And the final word balloons on this page are, today you and your coward army shall face judgment and death via giant Martian mech warrior battle. Remember when I thought this book was just about like, hey, let's get introspective about the different like aspects of the personality of John Jones and like how he has to reunify himself in order to become a better version of himself. Blah, blah, blah. Nope. Giant mech warrior battles on the surface of Mars. Why not? Let's just go nuts. I jest, but I do think this book has kind of crossed the event horizon of absurdity. Like, I don't think we can go back to just a little story about, like, okay, it was never little, but we can't go back to this introspective story about, like, what does it mean to be a hero and all that other stuff. I don't know this. I have nothing to back this up, but I feel like the plan was 6 issues. The plan was 6 issues. You wrap it up with him like stopping the portal. Earth is saved. The reunification happens. John Jones is back. But then obviously we're moving all the way up until Rebirth starts. We're moving to the end of the New 52. Maybe it got extended. Maybe sales were good enough. And instead now we get giant mech warrior battles on the surface of Mars. And I don't think that's better. I think it's a choice. I think that it's possibly a lateral move, but I don't think it's better. So... yeah, whatever hopes I had for this book, once they went into the portal, I feel like I've just got to readjust everything I was doing before, and now it's a completely separate book on its own. So Martian Manhunter, the Mars Saga. This is okay for that. It's 6.5. I think it got a little bit messy with the explanations, and as much as I feel like I get my grip on what the book is now, who each of the characters are and like the parts they have to play, every once in a while it throws me something where I'm like, oh, that goes against everything I feel like I know, but not in a way where it feels like it's throwing a twist or like trying to fool me and trick me in something. It just feels confusing. So I'll say 6.5. I'm hoping for better. I'm hoping that like maybe we can get some even cooler moments out of this, but I don't know. I feel like we've kind of peaked. It's giant warrior mech battles on the surface of Mars. Like, what do you want? Secret 6, number 10, written by Gail Simone, art by Dale Eaglesham. So last issue, it was just more escalation, more things happening here, but the big part of it was Black Alice requested that she be mercy killed in order to stop all of this, stop the whole plot. So this issue opens up with the Dark God Thrum, who is this amorphous mass of tentacles and thorns and such that apparently has a memory from before he was sealed away, and all he remembers is hunger, and he loves the taste of despair and whatnot. But he also catches a whiff as the alabaster pillars fall of his greatest treat that he enjoyed, Kryptonians. So we cut to Superman, and Superman's fighting against some robot thing. It really doesn't matter. Zatanna is narrating the whole thing, saying like, it's nighttime, and it's weird to see Superman fighting at night, because he's like supposed to be a daytime guy, but here he is, he's doing his thing, and everyone loves him, and like, why does everyone love Superman, and they don't love people who can do magic as much? Why are we all the outcasts and the weirdos? I'm a little bitter. So either way, Superman lands and is like, hey, Zatanna, what's up? And she's like, look, I came to ask for help. Good job with the thing. You're looking good. And he's like, you're not looking so hot yourself. And she's like, no, I guess I'm not. Good to hear. So she basically says, look, there's a 1,000-year-old magic gate that's keeping all the demons out, keeping all the magic bound together. And some losers in a 6-man boy band are trying to take it all out. And the last 2 alabaster pillars that they're going to try to attack are right underneath this building in Metropolis. So you want to help? So then we cut down to underneath the building. We see Catman and all the rest of Secret 6, along with whatever her name was, Jeanette. I think it's Banshee. They're all making their way down, but Banshee's starting to get like weak. She's starting to get like really like not okay. And Porcelain's walking with her, and eventually they make their way through, and they're like, okay, well, according to everything, this is the spot right here, but there are big walls in the way. So are we sure we want to do this before we start bringing down the walls? Because this, like they said, might be the end of the world. And Catman's like, look, we killed the last dark evil god thing that came through. We can kill the next one. We can both save Alice and continue to make sure everything's fine. So Porcelain steps up, makes the wall super brittle. It falls down, and behind it is a big dark tunnel that at the end of are the 2 remaining alabaster pillars. So they're like, all right, well, we'll just do the same thing again. Jeanette, use your Banshee powers and take it out. And she's like, I'd love to, but I'm going to pass out. And she just collapses down to the ground. Porcelain's like, I don't know what's happening, but I think she's dying. And then we cut over to the House of Strangers, which is the house that all the magic people are holed up in. Dead Man's starting to fade in and out of existence. Dr. Occult's like, well, yeah, you're only here because of magic. You're literally just like pure magic. So like, if magic is starting to fail, you're going to be the first to go. We then cut over to Alice, who is holding up, not Vandal Savage. What's her name? Scandal Savage? I think that's right. Her little gauntlets that have spikes on them, and she's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to kill myself. Scandal's like, no, don't do it. Look, I promise to protect you. You're not going to be able to die. And she's like, I can't, like, everyone says it like I'm so selfish. Everyone says it, but like, even I know 1 life against 7 billion, that's not cool. Like, I got to be able to do that. And like, look at this. There's 2 griffins here that I summoned in my sleep. Like, what happens if I make an army of them near a hospital or like a school? What happens then? I'm going to be the emissary of death. I will be the one who murders, the god of like all of murder, if I'm allowed to live and all this keeps on going on. So like, yeah, let me die as Lori Zeckling instead of the god of all murder. And Ragdoll is like, she makes a good point. I mean, just do the thing. So Scandal's like, all right, fine, I'll do it. She puts on her gauntlet and she's like, think of things you love. And she's like, I love the color black. I like lemon cake. Any type of dog, that's cool. Also, those boots that my mom bought me that my dad hates, I love those boots. And then we cut over to the Secret Six and they're like, okay, Porcelain, hey, look, I'm sorry that Banshee seems to be dead, but we need you to crack those columns. So could you walk over and use your powers on it? And then Superman shows up and he's like, all right, we're done here. I don't know, whatever. I've been filled in, so I know the basics, but like, you're done. And the Secret Six all just look at each other and they're like, what the hell? And they get ready to fight. So we cut between the different groups here. The sorcerers and all of them are like, all right, if we're left with no choice, we've done everything we could to try to stop this prematurely. We got to go in there and we got to prepare for war. So anyone, good, bad, whatever your previous affiliation was, the slate is wiped clean, grab a sword. We're going to go out and do whatever we can to fight. We then cut over to Scandal Savage and Black Alice. And Black Alice is like, okay, go ahead, do it, kill me. And she's like, I thought I did. And we see her spikes are like impaling Alice's body. And she's like, Alice, you good? And then all of a sudden, Alice's eyes turn bright red and her voice box changes as Alice doesn't live here anymore. But then we get back over to the Superman fight. So everyone's tackling Superman. He's just like, seriously, guys, look, this is 1 life against all lives. Like, I will do what I can to help you try to save your friend, but like, you're not doing this exact path. And they're like, well, that's the thing, Superman. We didn't really think this through. And he's like, yeah, I gathered. And they're like, but you also didn't think this through because we have a secret weapon. And we see stepping out from behind Superman is Ventriloquist, who, fair enough, uses her telekinetic powers that I don't feel like we've ever seen her really use before. And she starts throwing Superman around the cave. And Ferdy's just sitting there making crass comments the entire time until finally Superman's like, all right, well, we need to stop that. And he uses his heat vision in one of the down moments to set fire to Ferdy, where it distracts Ventriloquist enough that she's out of the fight. And it's just like, there, your secret weapon I just took out with like 1 blast of heat vision. You're done. And Catman's like, ho, ho, ho. That wasn't the only secret weapon. And then Porcelain comes out, lays a hand on Superman, and Catman explains, like, this is Porcelain's superpower. It is to make the most tough and hard things become brittle and fragile. And Superman, you're the hardest and toughest thing ever. So it's doubly going to work on you. And we see these cracks are spreading up Superman's skin. Porcelain steps up, has the hammer over their head, and Catman's like, do it. What are you waiting for? It's like, this is Superman. I ain't gonna do this to Super. You do it. And in steps Big Show, and he's like, now hold up, everybody. Look, Superman, you may not recognize me because of my current getup, but we were friends briefly a long time ago. But you said that you would help, and I believe you because you're Superman. And then in steps the whole army of the sorcerers and stuff like that, and they're like, you've made the White Gate too thin. It's too late. We're not going to let you destroy what's left, and we'll all die to stop that from happening. Meanwhile, cut over to the true Atlanteans, the ones that were kind of like egging all this on. They welcome the dark god Thrum. It arrives. It's looking Cthulhu-esque over the oceans. We then cut over to Black Alice, who's now saying like, oh, Black Alice, that girl, Lori Zeckling, she died in the car crash that killed her parents. But in her dying moment, she called out to all the pagan gods, the death worshipping that she was. She called out to them to save her life, and I decided to answer. And this is where it just goes off the goddamn rails. The Black Alice literally says, I'm not going to win today. The stakes are too big. Everything got too high. But I've waited for 1 million years as this death god to see my plans come to fruition. I'll go ahead and wait it out. And by the way, Scandal, if you tell anybody the truth about who I really am, I'm going to send both your wives into what the devil himself would consider hell. So keep your mouth shut. And so she teleports out. She comes into the middle of the fight, like before it's about to start, between the sorcerers and the Secret Six. And she's like, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Everything's cool. Thanks for fighting, but we're not draining the magic anymore. And then it's just done. We're just done. Like, there's one more page where Alice basically is walking down the street saying, I don't remember exactly what happened. Superman recovered. We reburied the alabaster columns much, much deeper down. The Dark God Thrum apparently showed up and just ate all of the true Atlanteans because he loves that taste even more than Kryptonians. And now I'm here with my home with all the Secret Six or whatever. And she still has her ability to access the magic of others. So she uses some Zatanna backwards magic and turns some boys that are making fun of her for being emo into donkeys. And that's it. That's the plot. The whole story's done. What? Why? I don't. It took 2 pages. It's literally, we set up this. We had the entire thing of the Dark God Thrum coming to eat everyone, and like he loves Kryptonians, and Superman gets involved, and all the sorcerers are ready for war, and everything else is happening, and there's someone inside Black Alice that is keeping her alive, and then it's done. What the hell just happened? Oh my God! I cannot express my shock reading that, and not in a good way. I want to be clear about that. Like, was it funny? Yes, to an extent, but like, I spent so many issues getting to know the different factions of this fight, getting to know what everybody like wants out of this. And it's not simple. Like, there's so much double crossing and so many like lies being told here that you got to keep track as the audience of what exactly is happening. And then it just ends. It just ends with someone who is not Black Alice. Black Alice is, I guess, dead for all intents and purposes. This demon coming in and saying, like, actually, I'm more powerful than anything you've seen before, but my plans have not yet reached fruition, so stop the issue. And then it just does. It's just, I appreciate the cojones, but, like, damn, that was not a satisfying end to what has been building up for many issues now. I don't even know what to give it because of that. I guess a 7, maybe. I don't know. My gut says like a 5.5. My gut says this was a horribly unsatisfying issue, but like the balls on it though, like that's the part that's like, nah, I gotta give some cred. Nah, I do think I gotta go with my gut a bit more. As much as I can't guarantee that this was actually balls. They might have thought that they nailed it. They might have thought that like, no, this is clearly how we end the story. So I'm gonna say 5.5. You could argue up to a 6, but I'm gonna say 5.5. I think this is possibly like borderline of saying it was all a dream. This is like the worst way to end a possible story. And it's not inherently a comedic book either at this point. Like, yes, there are comedy beats, but it's not nearly as comedic enough that you can just pull this off like you could in like a Bizarro issue or something. So no, 5.5. Ouch. Harley Quinn, number 24, written by Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Chad Hardin. And I'll just say it up front, this might be the most focused issue of Harley Quinn ever. Existence of mankind. So, last issue, Harley's boyfriend, there was a whole plot about getting him out of jail because he kept on getting attacked there. Then he got moved to Arkham Asylum, and that's not better. So, this issue picks up at City Hall in Manhattan, where Harley's bashing the head against like the deputy mayor, the secretary, or whatever this guy's name is, saying like, oh, you need to have an appointment. And she just keeps beating him up, and he's just like, you're not getting in there, and you have no proof that the mayor did anything wrong. And then the mayor comes out, And it's just like, all right, Cecil, name of the guy, cancel all my appointments. I'm gonna talk to Miss Quinn here. So they walk inside, and the mayor basically just like, Harley, sit down. Look at this picture. Who do you see in this picture? It's like, well, that's you and I don't know, a very hot twink. And he's like, don't be crass. That's my son. That's my son that was murdered in that bar fight with your boyfriend. Your friend killed him that night. And no matter whether it was an accident or no matter whatever else, like, he's still dead. Your guy is responsible for that. So even if you do escape and get him out or anything like that, he's still going to be on the run. And like at that point, he's still going to be caught. Like, that's how this is going to happen. He's not going to be able to escape the system here. And Harley's like, oh, okay, so yeah, you didn't want him to be alive, so you had him transferred over to Arkham Asylum, and like after I found out that he had a hit on him, put in prison and all that. Yeah, no, this is all, you're the one who caused all this to happen here. And she's basically saying like, look, nothing will bring your son back, but you can at least realize the difference between an accident and manslaughter. Like, he feels awful about the stuff he did, and if instead of trying to get him killed or all that, like, find a way for him to work an off for you or something, like anything beyond what you're doing right now. And he's basically sits down the photo and he's like, I can tell you have not had a kid because you think that that's okay, that you think that like he is able to just get over it, like that's actually something's going to happen. But my wife is depressed. She's gotten into drinking. I have to come in here every day and smile and wave to all the people and convince them that their city's fine, despite the fact that I can't even get my own family under control. So as far as your boyfriend, as far as Mason McCobb, I didn't have anything to do with it. I didn't sick him in the prison. I didn't have him try to get killed at that point. I did not transfer him over to Arkham Asylum. I know nothing about any of this for me. But regardless, I'm not going to do anything to make his life better. I'm not going to step in. I'm not going to try to fix anything here. If I don't owe him anything, I don't owe you anything. And she's like, well, I have pictures of you taking bribes. And she's like, yeah, and we have a deal. I'm not going to go after your gang of Harleys as long as you don't do that. Like, that's the deal. So the next time you need to call me, the next time you feel these urges that you have something to say to me, call my office. I'm booked for the next few years. And he just basically kicks her out at that point. The last thing she says is like, look, I'm going to get him out of Arkham with or without your help. There's no reason to have more blood on your hands if that's the way it's going to be. And so the mayor opens up the door. There's a full SWAT team just sitting there waiting. It's just like, I don't have a drop of blood on my hands because, like I said, I'm telling you the truth. I didn't do any of this stuff. So you know your way out. And as she's leaving, Cecil says like, oh, if you make one wrong move, we'll fire on you. And she just blows a raspberry and it's like, you know what? Hook up with a mad scientist woman so she can grow you a spine. So Harley meets up with Tony outside. They hop in the car and she's like, I believe him. I for whatever reason, he didn't do this. I don't know who put his the thing on it, but either way, let's go make some calls. Then the mayor calls Cecil into the office and he's like, hey, Cecil, have you been making moves without me knowing? And Cecil's like, I know how much he was hurting you, Mr. Mayor. I know you wanted to see him punished. I was doing only what I thought was best. And if I told you, then you would have been liable. And he's like, well, now I am liable because I know about it. So I need you to actually, honest to God, take care of this here, okay? I've got a big problem with Harley now, bigger than this macabre character. So how about you deal with that? And he's like, oh, yes, Mr. Mayor, I know exactly what I'll do. And he's like, well, good. Don't tell me. Just get it done. So we cut back over to Harley's headquarters, and they're like, okay, what's the plan? What are we going to do? And she's like, well, we're going to break into Arkham. We're going to do what we can. We're going to take him out. And everyone at the table, Mason's mother, Cyborgman's there, the Russian woman who I can't remember the name of, they're all like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's bust him out. We're all ready to do whatever it takes. And Cy is the only one who says, like, that's Arkham Asylum. It's not that easy to get into Arkham Asylum. And Harley's like, he's right. None of you should put your lives at risk. I know the place. I got a history. I should be able to get in there. I was a doctor there. I know their protocol. And she basically is saying, like, you don't have to risk your lives. And everyone's just like, look at this room. We're all insane people here. We're going to go ahead and do it. And he's like, no. I'm going to work with some local talent. I think that's going to be better off for all involved here. So At that point, she pops on to the computer, starts doing some searches, and it's at that point that Mason's mother looks out the window and she's like, we might have some other trouble our way, because down on the ground are a bunch of gunmen that are approaching the house. So Harley says, all right, Cy, you stay out here. You're going to guard the door. Everyone else into the closet. And they're like, what? Why are we hiding in the closet? But Harley presses a button that activates a drop chute that sends them all down into an armory. This is a full artillery ready to go. So everyone grabs some weapons and is like, all right, get the cameras up and running. We're all going to jump out, shoot to kill. However, leave a few of them alive because I want to ask them questions about who sent them. So they head up, and immediately it's just a massive shoot fest. Like, everyone's going crazy. Harley and them do have the drop on them. However, we see a couple of workers, wherever they're from, a couple of female workers, they're in their underwear, they're getting dressed. We see, I don't even know his name, the goat man, whatever his name is. He's sewing them some outfits, and in bust a couple of gunmen, and the gunmen see these women and say, well, we don't have to kill them right away, we can have some fun first. To which the goat man comes in and immediately bashes in the head of one of the gunmen with his own skull. They knock him out with the butt of a rifle, and as they're about to shoot him, the girls are like, wait, hold on, and they flash their boobs at the gunman. That literally causes their heads to explode. Turns out it was actually Tony with a shotgun, but they thought for a moment that, like, yeah, no, we just did that. So we see the Russian woman, whatever her name is, she is able to turn in, like, Sonic the Hedgehog style, turn into a ball and, like, strike down all the guys. Harvey Quinn is like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. How do I do that? And she's like, I was trained as a gymnast, and also I have cybernetic implants. And he's like, all right, well, that's a bit disappointing, but I'm willing to try anything once. So they walk off arm in arm with her saying, like, oh, yes, let's take down all the others now. A couple of the gunmen walk into a wax museum where it's a ode to serial killers, and they're like, yeah, we're not anything like these guys. These guys are monsters. We do it for money. And one of them's like, well, I like killing. That's why I do it for money. Like, surely there's not that much of a gap between us. And then McCobb's like, nope, not anymore, because she pops out and then just mows them all down. We see a couple gunmen make out to the garden in back where all the dogs are, and one of the dogs is humping a very obvious costume of a dog, but none of the other guys seem to notice. And then a gun pops out from the mouth of the costume and shoots them all in the kneecaps. Turns out the one in that costume was Harley. Tony somehow was also in a cat costume, despite the fact that he was one who absolutely killed other people before, but now he can't get out of the cat costume because he was naked inside of it. Cy Borgman's held up inside the room still. He was defending it. They're like, hey, Cy, you can come out. We taking care of them. And they're like, how do I know this isn't a trick? Tell me something only you would know. And they list off all these very personal things about him. And he's like, that doesn't prove anything. What's my favorite color? And he's like, rhodamine. And he's like, yep, that's it. Come in. So they get all the gunmen up to the roof, and it's just like, okay, look, we're going to kill everyone except for the first person who rats as to who hired you guys. So it's up to you guys. Whoever's going to rat first, that's the person who gives. And everybody except for one guy immediately rats simultaneously. And they're like, oh, well, crap. How do we fix that? How do we fix the situation where multiple people rat it all at once? And the one guy who didn't rat, he's just like, I'm ashamed that these guys, the profession of hitmen, we never rat out our employers. These guys, they're a disgrace. And Harley's like, I agree. They're a bunch of rats. How dare they? We should absolutely do it. Oh, by the way, when they ratted, they said Cecil from the mayor's office, in case that wasn't obvious. So she's like, yeah, you know what? That is embarrassing. You know what? I've made a decision. We cut over to the mayor's office, and all of a sudden there's a thump that knocks over a dresser. And he's like, what the hell was that? And then in through the window comes one of the guys, bound and gagged up. And he's like, what the hell is this? Is there a note stapled to his face? And we see that Harley is launching the rats from her catapult at the mayor's office. The guy who didn't rat, she's shaking hands and just be like, oh, do you want to get rid of this last one? You can aim the catapult. As long as you give me your word, you're never going to bother me and my friends again. And he's like, I give you my word, and you can trust that. So they fire this guy off, and he lands in the mayor's office. Mayor pulls off the note and reads it and sees that it says, this is from Harley. and this means war. And the last guy lands on Cecil, killing him, and everyone, like, the last guy managed to survive. He's like, what are the chances? I'm going to go play the lottery. So last thing we get is down at Penn Station. Harley is with Tony saying, like, hey, look, I'm going on my own down to Gotham. I'm going to take care of this Arkham thing. So I'm sorry you can't follow. And she's like, he's basically like, look, if you know you've got friends here, we're willing to help as a drop of the hat. You just call us if you need anything. And then we cut to Arkham Asylum, where Mason is talking to somebody through the vents. And he's like, yeah, I don't even know why I'm here. I'm not crazy. And the vent guy's like, I don't see why you're crazy either. You must have pissed off some real bad people up there. And he's just like, yeah, it's the mayor's son and all that stuff. And I got people on the outside, though, who are willing to help. It's like, oh, yeah, like who? It's like, oh, mother, old friend Tony. There's this girl I just started seeing. She's crazy, though. And he's like, I know the type. What was the name of your girl? It's like, oh, yeah, Harley. And then the guy's like, Harley, you say? When the last name of this Harley happened to be Quinn? And he's like, yeah, how'd you know? And we see that the man speaking through the vents is Joker, who's like, oh, I know her better than anyone. Ha, ha, ha. I like when it's focused. I like it. Here's the thing, like, top to bottom, this issue took Harley. Yes, she had some comedic beats. I mostly glossed over them. But, like, it took her and put her in a situation where everyone else is having to be the straight man, and it made her into a situation where she has to deal with things somewhat seriously. And we really focused down the plot onto this one specific thing. This one thing of the mayor's assistant has been the one that was causing all the problems. And now he sent these gunmen to deal with Harley, and now the mayor's extra pissed off because they have declared war on each other. Streamlined. Focused, no sort of little weird treks off into other things, no characters that randomly show up and we'll never meet again, except for the Hitman guy, but I'm willing to forgive that because it played into the larger plot. I am so happy with this issue comparatively. I say comparatively because it's still, in the grand scheme of like comics, fine. It's not great, but like for Harley, I was so burnt out with the comedy styles beforehand. I'm so happy to have this. Whether it's going to stick, probably not. I assume next issue we'll get a whole thing on like, oh, it turns out Harley actually needs to deal with her 401k back at work or something like that. But I'm willing to take what I have now. So 7, almost 7.5. But damned it if I didn't actually find myself kind of enjoying some of the pages. And that speaks volumes to this book. Batman and Robin Eternal number 16, written by Snyder, Tynion, Lansing, and Kelly, art by Andrea Moody, Roger Robinson, and Goran Suzuka. So this issue picks up in Cairo several years ago. It's the final part of taking down Scarecrow, as far as I could tell. And as they're fighting on the roof, Batman and Robin get caught in like a cloud of smoke or whatever like that, and Batman's like, Robin, and he's like, no, Batman, I'm not falling back. He's like, all right, fine, go chase down Scarecrow, you do that, I'll stay here. So Robin jumps after Scarecrow, takes him down, and slams Scarecrow's face into the side of a wall, knocking him out. And Batman's like, all right, take the Batwing, take Scarecrow back to Gotham. We're going to put him in Arkham. I'm going to stay here and clear the city of any other leftover fear toxin. And hey, Dick, I regret what I said before. You're an excellent partner. So Robin's like, hell yeah, I did it. And he flies off. And Batman's like, I had to send him away. He can't see what's happening next. The instructions from Mother were super clear. I had to prove my loyalty. It's the last part of our deal in order to get a better Robin. One way or another, this ends tonight. And we see a group, a mother, father, and child making their way into the theater, and Batman waiting off to the side. And then we finish up all the Azrael stuff. So we got back over to the Chapel of St. Dumas. Azrael's still stuck in cement. Red Robin's down on the ground. And St. Dumas is just like, yeah, here's the backstory. Jonathan Crane, he provided the fear toxin. Mother was super into it because it required there to not actually have to be like actual trauma or fear. We could just then send in the meta afterwards to mold them. And that was the way we were doing things until we came up with the Ichthys program, which is all we do is we induce trauma the same way as the fear stuff, but instead of coming out of it broken and able to be restructured or whatever, we come out of it with a sense of awe, of wonder, religious splendor, one might say. And therefore, when they come out of it, they're not broken and need healing. They come out of it fully healed already, and then they're just able to be molded into whatever we want them to be. And Azrael's hearing all this. He's like, wait a minute, hold on. You said that I was the angel. You said I was a cool guy. He's like, shut up, Azrael. So Red Hood's brought in being carried by drones. And he's like, your dude is being put through the Ichthys project right now. I don't know what's going on inside of his head. Probably the day where he straight up died. But like, whatever. After today, he's going to be totally healed, baptism by fire, and he's not going to know fear anymore. So then we get the glimpse of the inside, which we saw last issue was Joker in the crowbar, and Robin's just like, oh no, you can't be real. Batman's coming. He's going to find me. And Joker's like, I don't think so. And we see the crowbar coming down, beating him up. And then all of a sudden, Joker's hand stops. He gets caught and he looks up, and we see that Red Hood in a super weird armor set grabs the crowbar and he goes, ha, ha, ha. And Joker's like, now let's be civilized here. Let's think this through. Think about the good old days. You're wearing my mask after all. And Red Hood's like, wait till you hear my joke. You're just gonna die. So we go back to Azrael finally finishing his bitching. He's just like, wait a minute. You told me I mattered. That's all a lie. And he's like, what you were doesn't matter. Your previous life doesn't matter. What you are is a failure. So yeah, shut up. And as Azrael's trying to be like, look, I've seeked questions. I've done everything I could. I was seeking truth. And his master tells him to shut up. And Tim Drake's like, no, look, don't listen to your master. He's treating you as a pawn. He robbed you of everything, your name, your life, your family. And Azrael just gets a little flashback to a woman getting her throat slit, seemingly her mother, or his mother. So then Azrael breaks out of his entrapment in this concrete, and he's got his flaming sword. He's like, I see through the lies of Saint Dumas. So he basically is fighting against all the drones, and he's saying like, oh, you're so small-minded. You do not recognize that we are but a four-dimensional construct in an infinite multiverse. My crusade will always be for truth. I am not your instrument. I am not the angel of death. I am Azrael. So he takes out the drone that was taking care of Red Robin, and he swipes after Saint Dumas, but Saint Dumas disappears. He's no longer in his cloak, so he's like, I cannot let him escape. But Red Robin sees the other followers of the church are now swarming them. And he says like, all right, well, we're going to have to do that. You focus on them. I need to save my partner. So he goes over and he's like trying to brainstorm. He's like, okay, they said Ichthys is just like programming, like a computer language, but I don't know the computer language of the human mind, so I don't quite know how to jump in on that. What am I supposed to do? And Azrael's like, I could use some help over here. So Red Robin jumps into the fight, and he's like, look, let me bounce my ideas off you. You help me out here. Anytime there's a computer virus or something like that, it's because there's an exploit. There's a vulnerability. How do we find that vulnerability and close it up? And he's like, well, it's forging him into one of Mother's children. It's probably using the moment of his death. So you just need to make it so he doesn't overcome his fear. You need to, if you want him to stay the same, then he needs to be stuck in that fear still. And Tim's like, okay, that seems wrong, but I'll do it. So he steps over to Red Hood and he's just like, hey, Jason, I know you're in there. I know that like you're probably beating the ever-loving piss out of Joker, and he is. And he's like, but you can't. You got to stop. I need you to remember what it was actually like that day. You were killed. You were absolutely beaten to death, and you need to remember what it feels like, what it looks like. Remember the smell of the room, the cold on your skin, the feeling when you realized Batman wasn't going to show up and save you. You need to go back to that feeling. And we see inside of there, he finally stops beating the piss out of the Joker. And he has this moment of self-realization. And he's like, you got to remember, you're not a psychopath. And you're not just the man under the hood. And he passes the crowbar back over to Joker. And he's like, oh, look, someone finally gets my sense of humor. After all that, after everything else, you're alone here at the end. How do you feel? And Jason goes, I feel afraid, but I'm not alone. And all of a sudden he wakes up from his nightmare, and Tim's like, hey, you're good. Are you feeling all right? And he's like, I'm not good, but I'm not good in the same way I haven't been good. And I think I finally want to try to get help for that. And Tim's like, great moment for self-actualization, but we got to bounce, man. So at that point, they're still fighting through all the people, doing what they can here. They tell Azrael, like, look, we need a plane to get off this island. Like, we got to be able to get the details of this Ichthys program out there. And Azrael's like, southeast wing, it'll have what you need. I'm staying here. My destiny is to take out the Order of St. Dumas. So the city is lies, the order is false, and I serve the truth. And he plunges his sword into the ground, and there's this big, massive energy explosion. And Red Robin and Red Hood just go off like, all right, man, that's what you want. So they hop in the plane. They fly off. We see Azrael does survive. Tim wanted to go back. He's just like, oh, he saved us. And Red Hood's like, look, if he's able to survive that explosion that he was literally the dead center of, he is going to be fine if the whole place collapses. And we see he is. So Red Robin and them, they hop on to all existing spiral frequencies, trying to get in touch with Grayson. They're like, hey, we have information, whole thing about Ichthys. What you got to know up front is the kids, anybody who's brainwashed by this, they are not the enemy. They are absolutely able to be changed back. We don't have to write them off. Just move forward with that information. We'll discuss more when we arrive back home. And he says, as he says, there's hope for anyone. And we get a flashback finally to that night in the alley in Cairo. We get a trash can with a gun sitting on top of it. Batman picks it up and walks off into the darkness. And we hear a lone bang. Dun, dun, dun. I still think there's a switch. I don't think Batman did it. Clearly. Yeah, I like Azrael coming to the side of good. I feel like it, again, happened a little bit quick. I said that last issue where like they had all this stuff with Azrael and they just so quickly threw it away. But as much as I would have liked him to continue to be a villain or continue to be like questioning for a while, I do appreciate the fact that they're not like, oh no, did he die? Is Azrael gone forever? Like, no, he's there. We see him. He's walking away. Like, don't worry about it. So whenever we decide to bring him back, I'm sure he'll probably be back for the finale. I feel like I could flip to this last page and it's going to be like, and there's Azrael. The Red Hood stuff. That's the question. The armor looks stupid. I'm not going to argue that point. I think it's kind of dumb that he has like different armor than what he was previously wearing, but still has the normal red hood. I just wanted, I don't know. What Tim Drake saw when he got the Ichthys thrust upon him was like space and cosmos and all this weird stuff. It's weird to me that like Jason Todd's is just the moment of trauma that he already had. So maybe it just doesn't work on people who already have trauma. I don't know. It's weird in that way. But then also boiling it down to what the actual thing itself was. It's weird that they are using this as an opportunity for Red Hood to be self-bettered. Like, I get that it's fine. He came to a moment of self-actualization and like realized that he's holding on to all these things, but like, it's no different than any other time he was in there. Like, I don't understand why this is any different. So, not bad, just weird. 6.5? Nah, 6.5. I can't in good faith say 7. It just feels a bit too strangely paced for me. Maybe there were different plans. Maybe this wasn't all mapped out beforehand, but I don't know. This whole plot just felt kind of weird. Like, its sole purpose was, how do we get Azrael in the book on the side of good and immediately just like for the rest of the story? We don't want to waste time with anything else. And in that case, they succeeded, but everything else suffered because of it. So 6.5. Hopefully we can turn Azrael into a cooler character. And that's it. That is all the comics that were put out by DC Comics this January 20th, 2016. And for anybody watching the video version, you may notice I have a cat who could not wait until I finished this episode to demand attention. So I'm not just using this as bait to get people to check out the video version, but she is absolutely adorable. And you're missing out so much by listening to the audio only. Oh, tisk tisk. Anyway. moving on to the end of the episode stuff here. So what we have next week is actually... Oh, all right, I lost the cat. What we have next week is actually a little bit complicated. And I say that because I haven't fully made up my mind yet. So what I have is a normal list of comics, and I'll just tell them to you right now. Aquaman, Black Canary, Cyborg, Deathstroke, Grayson, Justice League 3001, Justice League of America, Omega Men, Superman, Lois and Clark, Teen Titans, We Are Robin, and then our weekly series, Batman and Robin Eternal. However, there is one more in that list, and that is Suicide Squad, Most Wanted, Deadshot, and Katana. And the reason it's complicated is that is like a double-length book. It is a Deadshot issue and a Katana issue. And I don't know if I want to do both of them in the same breath, like in the same episode, you know? Because that's a lot. That's a lot to take in. There has been precedent. I have split up like backup stories and stuff like that before. I could treat the Katana story as a backup story and do it on a different week. But I'm not convinced of that yet. So if you specifically now on this video, because you wanted to check out the cat, if you have any interest in whether or not it is split up or whether or not I keep it together, please let me know. Leave a comment on this video. Speaking of which, if you have comments on any of the things that I've talked about, no matter how mundane or stupid, you can leave them down in the comment section of the video. Or if you are, for some reason, not watching the video version, which again, want to remind you, there is a cat, you can go ahead and check out the Discord, subreddit, Patreon. We have multiple places, all of which I probably eventually will kind of notice. So be sure to do stuff. Anyway, that is going to be it for me. I have to continue to take care of this cat, but always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.